This is Taylor Sharp with the latest from the Guarantee Media Traffic Center. Brought to you by Shaw Bills, where you can get free tire repairs on all household cars when you purchase new tires. It's all part of the Charlie's Dozen, and it's only at Shaw Bills. Northbound Airline Highway at Florida Boulevard has been closed since about 11:30 last night due to an overturned tractor trailer, and it is still closed at the moment. I'll monitor the situation as the morning goes along. Also, be advised about an accident with injury on Greenwell Springs Road at Magnolia Bend. Expect some congestion there if you're in the area. As far as how our interstate systems are looking right now, everything seems to be smooth sailing so far.
I might actually. Hate homers from Hayden and Braden. .606 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Good morning, everybody. Brian here with you. Jake producing. We call it Mornings with Brian Haldane, and we are off and running to kick off this Monday morning. Going to be a busy Monday. Although, we're missing a Monday regular today. Condon's taking the day off. Dang it. Not to worry. We got plenty of ground to cover. A Moral Dilemma makes its return today, and I had a topic I was planning on talking about, and then things may have changed last night. We'll see as the show wears on. Guest list starts in the 7 o'clock hour. Ann Heinrichs with Our Lady of the Lake is going to be our guest from Medical Monday, talking about developmental care in children. Stephen Wagaspack from LABI going to join us at 7:35, talking about the business of the state and the business of the state legislature. Ryan Jay is a syndicated film critic. Have him on. I had him scheduled, obviously, before the Oscars happened, to talk about some of the films from the Oscars because, well, I mean, if y'all keep up with the show at all, you know I don't really follow a whole lot of new movies. And then things changed when the Oscars happened last night. He got one little fight and his mom got scared. For those that aren't aware, Will Smith smacked Chris Rock because Chris Rock made an offensive joke about Will Smith's wife. I'm sure that is going to dominate the headlines for just about every show in the world today. Back to the rundown, Clay Shexnayder at 8:15. What are we looking at as far as a veto override session is concerned, and how will it affect the rest of the state's legislative business? Apparently, I've been following a Twitter thread about Clay Higgins is not a huge fan of Clay Shexnayder's congressional map. Now, it's not just Clay Shexnayder's map, but Higgins is calling it the Shexnayder map, and he's got a huge problem with it. So we'll talk about that at 8:15 when Speaker Clay Shexnayder hops on board. Metro Councilwoman Denise Amoroso going to join us at 8:35 to talk about some business of the Metro Council, in particular, who should police noise from Baton Rouge bars and restaurants? Denise Amoroso has an idea. Shauna Banks plays the race card. No surprise there. Shauna Banks plays the race card 3 times daily, at a minimum. We'll talk about it. at 8:35. Plus top stories and trending, the outside in, this day in history, and a whole lot more as the morning wears on. You've got us locked and loaded from 6 till 9 this morning. I went into the weekend wanting to talk about a number of different topics in this opening segment. We had a lot of ground to cover here, but there's no way. Did you watch the Oscars last night? Did you? I did not watch the Oscars last night. I saw the footage after the fact. I have no idea how it aired in America. Every feed that I saw came from another country where you could hear every word that was spoken, every word that the FCC would fine people for. And I got to tell you, so I walk in this morning and Jake's like, did you see Will Smith end his career last night? I don't know, man. I don't know. I think as time wears on, as this week wears on, and conversation is had about this incident, and if you haven't seen it yet, just open any social media outlet. It's everywhere. I don't know that this doesn't play completely against Will Smith. The initial reaction that I saw on Twitter was, Will Smith should not have won Best Actor award. He should have been escorted out by police for committing a crime. Yeah, I hear you. He did. And I'm leaning towards this being our Moral Dilemma Monday topic a little bit later on in the show. By the way, if you're not familiar, Moral Dilemma Monday, there are no wrong answers. We take your feedback on our YouTube channel, Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. We stream the show live there every single day. We'll toss out a topic and just get your gut reaction to it and read the feedback in our last segment of this hour. I was actually intending on talking about Baton Rouge putting up signs advising people not to give to panhandlers. This feels bigger than that right now. So here's the question. Who do you side with? Chris Rock, Will Smith? And let me give you the defense for Will Smith. All too often, we tend to pine for the good old days. All too often, we tend to long for yesteryear. All too often, we in this country complain about the country being headed to hell in a handbasket. Well, you know what happened last night? A man stood up for his woman's honor. Plain and simple. Insult me all day long, fine. Come after my wife? Oh, that's sure. There's other ways to handle this, yes. But I kind of side with Will Smith here. If my wife had a health condition that caused her to be bald, yeah, that's kind of off limits. You don't talk about that. Make fun of her work, fine. She's a public figure in that regard, yes. But when you cross that line, I think as conversation continues to be had, Will Smith will rise in this. Chris Rock's not going to fall to the wayside. Don't worry about him. He was paid to tell jokes. He told jokes. It's a kind of funny joke. Really dated, though. The joke involved... So Jada Pinkett Smith has a bald head. Chris Rock said, were you working on G.I. Jane 2? G.I. Jane came out in the mid-'90s. Freshen your reference, Hoss. Anyway, let's get your feedback on our YouTube channel. We'll go over it in our Moral Dilemma Monday segment later on this hour. Right now, we got to take a quick break. LSU baseball took care of business over the weekend. I don't want to talk about the NCAA tournament, but the Final Four is set. We'll cover that, a little bit of softball as well, all coming your way right after we take a quick break. Before we take that break, though, remind you every day about the folks over at Complete Collision Center. Doug and his team at Complete Collision Center, they do phenomenal work. You know how they do. Plank Road in Zachary, Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, just east of Blue Bonnet. Those are the two locations. Certified by Ford, Honda, Acura, Nissan, Infiniti, Hyundai, Kia, Fiat, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep. You name it, basically, they got a certification for it. And oh, by the way, if they don't have a certification from your particular manufacturer, they have the iCar Gold Class certification, which puts them in the top 15% of body shops nationwide. I tell you about this every day because it's important. It's important when you get into an accident to know where you're taking your vehicle to make sure it is taken care of, to make sure your family's back out on the road safely. 768-9898, 768-9898, or CompleteCollision.com. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Check out Complete Collision Center.
So we're definitely talking about this for Mortal Dilemma Monday,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah. The more I think about it, because
It's the perfect topic. Because we're not going to talk about it until that segment, but we disagree. I said we're not going to talk about it until the actual segment hits live. But I can tell you right now we disagree.
Okay,
so
good.
This should be good.
Okay, well, tell your girlfriend not to listen.
Oh, no. And by the way, Moral Dilemma Monday, 6:52.
Hayden Travinski's home run, and then Braden Jobert's home run, yeah. Eric says, I see it as she is a strong woman, but I get it. But conditioning violence, great message to send. Okay. Yeah, let me hang on to that one, too, because I have a response there. Baton Rouge just put up some signs around town. I don't know where else I've seen them on Sherwood, but they basically warn you that for the safety of the panhandlers, stop giving money to panhandlers.
Panhandlers?
Bums, people that walk up to your car in the middle of traffic. It's it has gotten dangerous. They stand in the middle of traffic now.
Yeah,
I'm shocked on a daily basis that we don't see them taken out by moving vehicles.
I've seen it. Yeah, living next to campus or on campus for 4 years. Yeah.
.617 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. So, wow. First of all, Final Four set. We'll get to that in just a minute. Got to start off, though, with LSU baseball over the weekend. Heading into Friday night, everybody knew it was going to be a rough go of it for the Tigers over in Gainesville. Squaring off against Florida and starting off against a 6'7" tall left-handed pitcher who throws in the mid-90s. Friday night played out the way everyone thought Friday night would play out. What did not play out the way a lot of folks thought would be the rest of the weekend. After Friday night's 7-2 loss, the Tigers rebounded quickly. I mean, quickly. Every run that wasn't scored Friday night was scored on Saturday. LSU puts up a 16-4 win on Saturday. They follow up that, well, I shouldn't say every run was scored on Saturday because they held off 11 more runs to post up on Sunday with an 11-2 win to get out of Gainesville with a 2-1 series win. Yesterday's win, Hayden and Braden left the yard. Let's start off with a home run by catcher Hayden Travinski.
Travinsky drives one deep down the line in left. This ball stay fair. It will. It is gone. Another two-run home run here in the top of the fourth inning, and the Tigers lead 4-0.
Like I said, it was Hayden and Braden. You had Travinsky homering. You also had Braden Joubert leaving the yard.
Neely the 1-2. Hit towards the gap right center field. This ball jetting out of here, and this one is gone. I mean, on a frozen rope to right center. That had to be 382 off the bat of Joubert. A three-run home run, and the Tigers have opened it up again. 10-0 LSU.
382. Chris Blair with the remarkably specific call. Not 380, not 385, 382 at 4 inches. LSU baseball will be back at it tomorrow night in the box, taking on UL Monroe. I'm looking up at the clock. We'll update softball in the Final Four right after we check the Fox Business Report, which is coming your way now here on Talk 107.3 FM, the new flavor of talk in Baton Rouge. Oh. God, I wish Condon was in today. I have a feeling Condon would completely agree with me on this one. Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, let me go get my water. I'll be back. Okay. Today's weather looks like an avocado. Yeah, it's like a green oblong circle or like a green egg shape, and then a yellow egg shape, and then a almost orange egg shape in the middle of that. It does. .624 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Got CBS News coming your way. A little bit more than 6 minutes from right now. We'll get you caught up on local news, traffic, and weather shortly as well. Taylor will have your next traffic update in a little bit. If you're driving in from some either low-lying areas or areas near water, expect some fog to start off the morning. It's going to burn off as the sun comes up, obviously, but that's where we're starting off. So we left off with LSU baseball, kind of ran out of time. Let's update you on LSU softball. Beth Torina's Tigers. By the way, Beth Torina going to be on the show this Wednesday. Beth Torina's Tigers fall on Saturday at Arkansas, 8-7. They pick up a 7-4 win yesterday. Different kind of series this week is it wasn't a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was a Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So LSU and Arkansas will be back at it tonight right here on Talk 107.3 FM. 6 p.m. is your first pitch. Patrick Wright will be on the call with pregame starting at 5:45. Over to the NCAA. Your Final Four is set this coming Saturday at 5:09 p.m. Villanova and Kansas are squaring off. That'll be followed by North Carolina and Duke. Interestingly enough, who knew? North Carolina and Duke have never squared off in the tournament before. They've played more than 250 times in the series history. None of them in the NCAA tournament. So they will square off at the listed start time is 7:49 p.m. Saturday night. And of course, 1 week from tonight, a champion will be crowned. It's seen everything I came close to wanting to put money on over the weekend just did not pan out. Like every game was not where it should have been. North Carolina housed St. Peter's. And all the magic that everybody was riding just kind of wore out, and the ship kind of leveled for the Final Four. All right, moving right along. Will there or will there not be a veto session? We're going to talk with Speaker Clay Shexnayder at 8:15 this morning. In our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about some other stuff coming out of the state capitol. But right now, though, we should learn this morning that state lawmakers, or we're expecting to learn this morning that state lawmakers will hold another veto session. They're going to attempt to override the governor's veto of the congressional district map that was approved by the legislature last month. Jeremy Alford for lawpolitics.com says it's going to take 70 votes in the House, 20 votes in the Senate to override the veto. There are currently 68 Republicans in the House.
There's going to have to be buy-in from Democrats for this to work. Republicans can't get there on their own. And then you had at least one Republican in the House who already voted against the congressional map.
You're going to hear more from this from our news partners at Louisiana Radio Network coming up in just a couple minutes. The veto session would start Wednesday. The regular session, you basically just push pause for a couple days. Up to 5 days for the veto session, then you resume the regular session after that. Every legislator I've talked to on this show has said basically the same thing. It won't be a problem. They're going to have more than enough time to get everything they need to get done for the regular session. The fact that it's not a fiscal session helps. Overriding a veto is a big deal. In fact, it hasn't been done in recent times at all. There was an override session after the last regular session, and it was unbelievably infuriating because they got nothing done. They held a veto override session after the regular session. They brought all the representatives and senators back into town, and everything the governor vetoed carried out. That's why it's going to be interesting to watch this bad boy play out, because just because you can get to an override session doesn't mean the override is stamped. It doesn't mean it's good to go. By the way, Alford says John Bell Edwards is ready to defend his veto of the congressional map that features only one majority-minority district.
The governor has put up a fight for. We've seen this play out, but it certainly looks like a close vote in the House. We'll have to wait and see.
Now, Edwards believes the congressional district map should feature two majority black districts because the African-American voting population has grown since the last census. It is 1/3. But when you break down the map, it's hard-pressed to cross that threshold for any in particular district around. So a redrawing of maps would have to include a significant amount of gerrymandering. Other maps were proposed, but there's the Voting Rights Act you have to follow, and then there's other rules you have to follow as well. And we're at an impasse between those two. Alford says if the veto override attempts fail, it's doubtful Republicans will send a map to the governor that has an additional black voting district.
It's hard to see the legislature sending the governor anything that's dramatically different than what was already sent, which is why more than likely that this issue ends up in the courts.
Which, by the way, is probably the biggest key factor in all of this. Forget about whether or not you like the map that went through. Forget about whether or not you believe there should be another second majority-minority district. No matter how this plays out in that building on the other side of downtown, no matter how this plays out in the coming days, it's going to end up in the hands of the courts. If they override the veto and run with the map they've got, great. If they don't override the veto and they present another map, great. If it's got one majority-minority district, great. If it's got two, great. The bottom line of this is it's going to end up in the hands of courts because no matter what happens, someone's going to sue. So, out of the interest of pragmatism, why not override the veto? You get so much more done by overriding the veto. You expedite the process of moving this thing down the field. You expedite the process of getting to the courts that are going to inevitably have to work on this and decide on it anyway. Not to mention, if you're in the legislature, you're kind of throwing an elbow back at the executive. Here comes CBS News. Play it and then weather. Trying to think of what we need to do to get the internet working, because if it were the computer itself, it wouldn't connect to the network. Since it's connected to the entire network, it's got to be connected to the internet. All right. Good morning, Christy. And good morning to everybody in the app. Or not the app, the chat. Excuse me. Renee, Eric, Clint. Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's good? Yes.
Wow.
637 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Normally during this segment on a Monday, we'll bring you Richard Condon to talk about God knows what. We just let him loose. Condon's got the day off today. Much deserved day off. So we will maybe make that up later on in the week. I can't imagine letting another week go by because we didn't have him on last Monday as we were on location for the Dreams Come True golf tournament. So it's been a minute since we've gotten our dose of Condon, but we will have to wait at least another 24 hours. We've got a number of different news topics to cover in this segment, not the least of which, well, let me reset the table here. Moral Dilemma Monday's back today, and we're asking a very simple question of our audience on the YouTube chat. Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. By the way, subscribe while you're there. That way you'll get an alert when we go live every day, and you'll also get an alert if we go live for emergency coverage as well. Anywho, the question we're asking, whose side are you on here, Chris Rock's or Will Smith's? The kerfuffle from the Oscars last night. The immediate takeaway was Will Smith should have been arrested. Will Smith committed a crime. That's assault right there. Boom. He walked up on stage and smacked the guy. I will say good on Chris Rock for not escalating it, but I will also say I kind of have Will Smith's back here. I'll explain in a little more detail in our next segment. Couple of different stories we need to touch on in this segment, one of which you just heard about in our news. You heard Jeff Palermo doing news there at the bottom of the hour, and we're looking to fill a teacher shortage in Louisiana. Let's push pause on that for 1 second. Terry Jones at The Advocate had a fantastic story yesterday. The headline reads, with Amazon coming to Baton Rouge, public sector employers feel pressure to raise wages. From the article, when state and local leaders announced last year that Amazon would build a $200 million, 3.8 million square foot fulfillment center, it's still so impressive to read that out loud. Oh, man. Oh, sorry. It's huge. I drive past it every day, and it's no less impressive every single day. Anywho. When state and local leaders announced last year that Amazon will build a $200 million, 3.8 million square foot fulfillment center in Baton Rouge, the higher paying jobs for the 1,000 plus employees the online retailers expected to hire was one of the benefits they touted the most. But recently, it's become a point of concern. If Amazon is paying a minimum of $15 an hour plus benefits, that means its jobs will become the more attractive option for many in the workforce, especially those in the public sector like the East Baton Rouge Department of Public Works and the City Parish Parks and Recreational System. Leaders in East Baton Rouge are already scrambling to increase wages for the lowest paid employees ahead of the fulfillment center's completion, happening now at the site of the old Cortana Mall. But raising wages in the public sector is always about finding a steady revenue source to pay for it. Experts in the business sector say Amazon marks a shift in the right direction for the local job market. Employers in the private and public sector will now feel pressure to bump up pay to compete for talent. This, as Terry Jones is reporting it, is being reported as a potential problem. I think if we take a quick step back and look at it, it's not a problem at all. It's actually wages working in the way that they're supposed to, and that is by following market demand. Every time we hear the hue and cry for a raise in the minimum wage, it's based off of nothing but rhetoric. This right here is a real-life example of the market determining what wages should be and not the government. This right here is a real-life example of what happens when it's not a free market. I get that it's not a free market, but when the open market sets the path. Now, what is this going to mean as far as reported here, the Department of Public Works and the City Parish Parks and Recreational Center system? Not real sure. Quoting from the story, this is the more progressive way to raise wages, says Andrew Fitzgerald, Senior Vice President of Business Intelligence for the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. You have a company coming in offering better wages, not typical in the industry, and that puts pressures on others to do the same. This is the organic way for this to happen rather than the arbitrary way of trying to do it through political wars over raising the minimum wage. Yes, Andrew, pretty much in lockstep with what I just said. As far as, are they looking at the same pool of talent here? Is this the same skill set here? Or is this an opportunity for the Department of Public Works and the Recreation and for BREC to maybe look at streamlining their departments, B, finding more specialized labor, and C, taking that specialized labor and paying them what they're worth? If you're streamlining it, you can cut a few salaries. Cutting a few salaries means at the same time cutting a few pension or healthcare plans, retirement plans, and the like. You don't have to increase the city's budget by going and getting the right labor, not just any labor. By the way, Jones, and this was a phenomenal piece if you haven't read it, Jones says a study released in 2021 by economists at the University of California, Berkeley, and Brandeis University showed that when Amazon upped its minimum wage at a given facility, companies in the same geographic vicinity followed suit. The The researchers said those gains were directly tied to Amazon's decision to pay $15 an hour, and that large corporate employers like Target and Walmart were able to compete by increasing their employee wages without driving down employment. By the way, as I continue to read the story, there is touching on, not diving fully into, but touching on how it affects not just the private sector, but the public sector. Jones says, on the public side, the conversations around Amazon's impact on the job market are in full swing. Next month, Breck Superintendent Corey Wilson said he's presenting the Park Systems Governing Board with a proposal to raise the pay for employees earning $10 or under up to $12 by May. And anyone earning more than $12 an hour could either get a 3% or 4% cost of living raise too. Quote, one of the first things I did when I started in 2019 was raising our minimum wage from $8 to $10, Wilson said. It's been just 3 years since that, and $10 is something people laugh at us about now. Now, while Jones is exploring the possibilities of what could happen at Breck and DPW, and while Jones takes a look at how Amazon has affected the private sector in other markets, and maybe I just missed it within the story, but I'd be curious to find out what Amazon's impact has had on the public sector where it's taken hold before. This will be worth picking up again, perhaps when we talk with Breck or anytime throughout the week. I did want to reserve time in this segment to talk a little bit about looking for teachers. And oh, by the way, there's a parallel here. You heard the story from Jeff Palermo at the bottom of the hour just a minute ago. Louisiana lawmakers are looking for solutions to the state's growing teacher shortage. Cade Brumley, we talk with him on the first Tuesday of every month. We'll bring this up with him when he comes back on again. He says they're looking for about 2,500 teachers to fill unfilled positions in the classrooms.
Those 2,500 individuals who aren't in schools teaching would have impacted about 20 kids each. You run around 50,000 kids that are being impacted.
Brumley says the Department of Education has seen some success in reaching out to high school teachers to encourage them to become reaching out to high schoolers to encourage them to become teachers, and would like to bolster those efforts with the creation of the Go Tech Fund.
It would create an opportunity for us to go into our high schools and recruit some of our best and brightest students across Louisiana and ask them to consider a career in education.
The Go Tech Fund bill is sponsored by Delhi Representative Francis Thompson. It would provide scholarships annually for students to pursue careers in education and would be administered through the Department of Education.
We can find out what the low points and high points are and improve the quality of teachers and number of teachers.
This legislation is heading to the House floor. I told you there were parallels between these two stories. How many times do we talk about competitive pay for teachers? I mean, when you look at what they're paid for the Southern regional average, this is going to be important as well. All right, we're due up for a quick break. We'll check traffic. We'll check your money now. Coming back after this, Moral Dilemma Monday. Heading your way next. Was Will Smith right or wrong? I know I didn't get to Baton Rouge Mattress. I'll do it on the back end. All right, where are we at here? Tiffany, good morning. Troy, good morning. I read the article and it seems to have it's a problem tone. No good deed goes unpunished. Thank you, Troy. It's the same takeaway I had. Wages are about to go up in the private sector for sure. Where Amazon has been before, has that affected the public sector? And oh, by the way, if you have, let's just pick round numbers here. If you have 20 people making $10 an hour, can you not get the same work done by having 15 people who are more skilled and better at their jobs working for 15? Well, I mean, it would still cost you slightly more on straight wages, but when you factor in healthcare, dental, retirement, all the other stuff, it will tick down a little bit. Oh, ho, ho. Byron says, so tax incentives offered to lure businesses result in higher wages based and subsequently more local tax collected works? Who knew? That's one of the reasons why I say it's not a full-on free market. But yeah, exactly. Exactly. And oh, by the way, it's a little bit different with Amazon because when you're talking about 1,000 jobs at once, with all the hype that's surrounded it, and they're not going to have a problem filling those jobs, we hope, it does impact things pretty greatly. Can you, well, I guess the internet's not working enough for you to be able to find a cleaned up version of the audio. Baton Rouge mattress here. That buys you an extra minute. So it looks like chivalry is not dead. 652 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Yeah, that's where I'm taking it. Moral Dilemma Monday coming your way in just a second here on Talk 107.3 FM. First, got to ask you how you slept last night. Tossing and turning, just a little bit uncomfortable, waking up sore in places where you have no idea why you're sore. It might be your mattress. 4065 Florida Boulevard, corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2. Those are the two locations of the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. Mitch Kimball and his team want to make sure you are 100% taken care of. He's got deals on top of deals. He's got financing available. And oh, by the way, drop my name and you'll get free delivery and a free pillow. And I'm not just like some $5 Walmart pillow. It's like a $45 pillow. 4065 Florida Boulevard, corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2. Those are the two locations. Check out the showroom. Lay down on the mattresses. Fall asleep if you can. I mean, take a nap. Mitch will let you take a nap in his establishment. That's what I did. I tried out more than a dozen mattresses. Christy and I found the one that was perfect for us. The Sealy Beauty Rest Black Label was ours. As the temperature starts to warm up around town, or everywhere really, the cooling gel gets to be more and more popular. You let us know. You let them know what's right for you. 930-5779 if you want to give them a call. Check out their Facebook page. You can check out their deals as they're posting up all the time for the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. All right. So, full disclosure, we've been having some internet problems in the studio this morning, and I was hoping to retrieve the actual audio from last night of Chris Rock and Will Smith. Only thing is I was hoping to retrieve a cleaned-up version of the actual audio of Chris Rock and Will Smith. It brings us to our Moral Dilemma Monday. Come on in, Taylor. You're going to get in on this as well. We're asking this question. Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? It's a simple question, but is it? Will Smith, for those that don't know, I didn't watch the Oscars. If it wasn't for social media, I would have never known this happened. Although if there were more fights, I would watch the Oscars for sure. Chris Rock made a joke about Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, and her bald head. Referenced the movie from the 90s. It wasn't the best of jokes out there. Will Smith very calmly walked up on stage, smacked the you-know-what out of Chris Rock, and then adjusted his jacket, walked back to his chair, and then shouted a few profanities. Keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? I'll give you my take in just a second. We'll read some of the comments from YouTube, but I want to hear from Jake and from Taylor on this one. Jake, let's start with you.
So, I think
you're gonna back off of your take now, aren't you?
No. Will Smith's in the wrong. Plain and simple.
Why?
Why?
Yeah,
He just
why?
slapped a man in the face on national television and yelled profanity at him when he is representing not just him, everybody that's worked on his movie, the family of the movie that is based on, who was in attendance. I get you're defending your wife's honor, but like, can you tell me that was the best way to go about it? It was a G.I. Jane joke.
It was a bad joke.
I'm not saying
it was a bad joke.
Right,
it was a dated reference, and it was a feeble attempt
to. Right by any means to make that joke, but much worse jokes have been made about people in that room, both in that show and plenty of shows just like that in the prior, times those have happened.
If someone insults your girlfriend in front of a worldwide audience, what are you doing?
Oh, I would be enraged, and I understand why he would want to do that, but doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Taylor?
Will Smith's in the wrong.
What?
Let's go.
Yeah. Look.
My apologies to your fiance.
I think it all depends on the setting. Like, if you're at the Oscars and you're on national TV, let the joke go. At the end of it, go up to him and be like, hey, I didn't appreciate that joke very much. If he's still being
I am shocked at you two.
If he's still being a you-know-what about it, throw hands, go crazy, whatever you want to do. Don't walk up on stage and smack him and try to act all hard. Like, oh, and then at the end of it, did you hear his speech afterwards? He goes, when he accepts it, he goes, and the character I played, he was a very strong defendant of his family. I'm like, we know, dude, you're tough. We got it. Look, and props to Chris Rock. He handled it like a champ.
So
he really did.
I will say that. I will say Chris Rock deflected or de-escalated the situation after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I think the whole thing's going to go away.
Well, the thing is if you make a joke like that, and obviously he took offense to it. He didn't at first until he saw, his wife didn't like it.
he was laughing.
Okay, so I will toss this back out, and we're going to get to our comments in the chat in just a second, but I will toss this back out. If your wife is humiliated on a worldwide stage, and you just sit there and say, I'll deal with it later, what are you telling your wife?
It's really humiliating though? Like
maybe he could have.
Absolutely. Did you see her?
No, I understand. But do you think genuinely this is something that will? I don't know, man.
Maybe.
Humiliated, I think, is too much.
I'm gonna put my take aside to get to some of the comments on YouTube. If I have room for my take, I'll share it in a minute. Colton says, I think he crossed the line when he brought up her medical condition. I know oftentimes celebrities will roast each other, but I would be upset too if that line was crossed. I agree with this. The work is what's to be made fun of. The work is what's subject for the punchlines, not the person themselves or the medical conditions. Anything that they've done in their own past, be it drug-related or whatever, anything that they've done to embarrass themselves is all fair game. At the end of the day, though, it's an award show, not a roast. Debbie says it didn't look like the hit connected. It sounded like the hit connected. Galen says, so Will Smith laughs at Chris Rock's jokes for years, and as long as his humor is directed to others, he's okay. But when his wife is involved in the humor, he batters Rock. Will Smith is wrong. I disagree with this because we all laugh at jokes when they're not about our significant other. Everybody does. It's not up to all of the world to take up for everyone else's spouse. It's up for a man to protect his woman's honor. Look, there are ways to handle this that would have been different. I understand that. He could have just stood up and shouted him down.
Like he did after.
Right.
After.
So,
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm fine. If that's how you want to handle it, then handle it like that. Not on the stage at the Oscars.
oh, no, see, that's
Not
where
on the stage at the Oscars.
I disagree with that because you handle it on the same stage where it happened. You can't handle something in private that happened on a worldwide stage.
But if you think that's out of pocket of him to do that, why don't you let this play out and let the backlash happen to him? Now that he's done that, everything is solely focused on him, and everyone thinks, well, apparently not. Most people think that he is in the wrong for doing this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, which makes it that much more
damaging to him as a person, his career, his personality.
The damage,
all of that's kind of going out.
The damage that he's taking because of it makes it that much more admirable. This is a hill he was worth dying on. And everyone should have that level of respect for their wife.
I tell you what, it brings new meaning to the word punchline, doesn't it?
Hey.
He got one little fight and his mom got scared.
He did. Yeah, he's out of here.
All right, thanks for popping in, Taylor. Appreciate your take, Jake. Disagree with both of you. Here comes CBS World News Roundup.
He's sensitive about his wife. It's almost like she cheated on him or something. It's almost like yeah.
See, knowing what I know about their drama already makes me less care about her being humiliated.
Same.
Like, she literally stole his smile after telling him to his face on national television, I don't love you anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend my wife's honor.
Well, so that's a whole different topic, though, in that we are way too involved in celebrities' lives. Like,
realizing he was born in the 70s. Come on. Thank you. Somebody's got some sense here.
humiliated is a stretch. People know it's a joke. Paul says if Will was white, he would then be in trouble, but he's not. Okay, so if Chris Rock was white, where are you going with this, Paul? That makes no sense. You're you're introducing hypotheticals. If Will was a rabbit, he'd be fine. Debbie says these are actors. Okay, Debbie, all right, now I see where you're going. Oscar moments. Oscar, like the dude that streaked in the 70s or 80s, whenever that was. Was this injected as something staged to reinvigorate the spirit of the Oscars, whatever? Making a joke about a celebrity's appearances within the scope of the celebrity's job description. Their appearance. Skinny jokes, fat jokes, Botox jokes are all in bounds. Okay. But are medical conditions in bounds? Not saying it was pre-planned, but look at Will Smith's face as he was walking off stage. And that's another part of this, too. Will Smith felt this was the appropriate level of response. He didn't jump on top of Chris Rock and pummel him. He walked up and calmly smacked the crap out of him and walked back.
Are you telling me it's okay because he didn't absolutely try and beat the S out of him?
I'm telling you it was proportional. It was a proportional response. You can disagree with the level of proportionality, but it was controlled, to say the least.
I think what you represent, who you are, what you mean to not just your family, but your fans, the people that are relying on you, counting on you to set a good...
counting on him?
Everybody that's made money off of him.
They're all going to make money tomorrow.
Oh,
they're all
yeah.
going to continue to make money.
His publicist, his agent, the people that he works with, his directors, his co-stars.
They've all... You're going to tell me anybody tied to Will Smith hasn't been riding a gravy train for 20-plus years, 30 years?
I'm not saying it's all bright and shiny over there. I'm just saying, if...
Then why hire Chris Rock? Everyone knows his style of humor. Shame on the Oscars for creating this time bomb. Galen, you and I are just going to disagree. So I would bring Chris Rock back again next year. Because nothing else says we're adults, we had our moment, we moved on. Like some sort of reconciliation. And by the way, during his acceptance speech, it wasn't missed that, and I saw his acceptance speech as well. That was the first place I went after seeing the actual, the joke, the fight, or the joke, the slap, and then what was next. He apologized to the Academy. He apologized to all the nominees. He apologized to the people he works with. He didn't apologize to Rock. I think Rock's going to apologize to him.
What doesn't help, and like this doesn't have any bearing on the debate itself, whether those actions were right or wrong. It's the fact that his perception as a celebrity was that he was one of the remaining wholesome, nice, good people. Like, I'm not saying it's right, and again, that has nothing to do with the actual discussion debate itself, because whether or not he is in that personality, you know, the way he's looked at, smacking somebody up on national television after he makes a joke is wrong. It doesn't help the fact that he is someone that the public, for the most part, has been on his side about with a lot of the things that have been happening with him and his family.
Yeah.
It's a horrible situation, and it sucks. But doing that, now it's hard for people to follow that. Because clearly that it's not the best
I don't
way of
think
going
his
about it.
persona... Are you saying his persona is a motivation?
His persona going from being like a smiley, happy, good guy that like people looking up to him would be like, man, I wish we could be friends kind of thing. Like one of those kind of celebrities. He had that persona, that personality, that ambiance behind him, if you will. Doing that now paints him in a much different light. It's like falling from grace. Like put him on a pedestal, eventually he's going to slip. Like that could be it for him.
I don't see that playing out that way. Ooh, I just watched it.
It probably
again.
won't. I'm just saying public perception may.
Oh. It is. Galen says, what kind of a message does this send to kids that are already quick-tempered? We have teenagers killing each other because they were insulted. That's a good point, Galen. That's a good point. Maybe it encourages more fistfights and fewer gunfights. No, you're comparing a slap to shooting a school? Gotcha. Galen, I'm going to use this one on air. .706 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Hour 2 coming your way right now. That is why I love Moral Dilemma Monday. Oh, the conversation's rolling over on the YouTube chat. Keep it going, y'all. Y'all fight it out. Y'all duke it out. Now, bear in mind, on Moral Dilemma Monday, there are no wrong answers except for Jake's. There are no wrong answers, okay? It's just a good discussion to have. And there's one more comment that I've got to get to before we move on. By the way, got a big hour coming your way this hour. We got Medical Monday. Anna Heinrichs from Our Lady of the Lake is going to talk developmental medicine. I can't wait to talk to Stephen Wagersback from LABI about the business at hand at the legislature and pushing pause potentially for a redistricting override, a veto override. Also going to talk with syndicated film critic Ryan J. at 7:50. I'm hoping to actually talk about some movies there, though I think the Will Smith stuff is going to override that just a little bit. Galen says in the YouTube chat, what kind of message does this send to kids that are already quick-tempered? We have teenagers killing each other because they were insulted. I'm glad you brought that up, Galen, because I'll tell you exactly what kind of message it sends. It lets kids know that you can handle things without using a gun. There's a huge difference between slapping a dude and shooting up a school. You can handle things without having to just unload all over a school. You have a problem with a person, you settle that problem with that person without using weaponry. That is just as easily the takeaway as anything else. Keep them coming, y'all. Fun discussion being had over on the YouTube chat. Mornings with Brian Haldane. We go live every single morning. Go ahead and subscribe while you're there, like Colton did as of this morning. Side question to it, and this is one of Jake's bigger points. Does this bring down Will Smith? I honestly don't think it will. I think he is at bleep you status. We'll continue it a little bit later on. I'm going to get you to top stories and trending here in just a minute. Got to ask you if you got lunch plans yet. If not, I've got your answer, and you know the answer already. Mooyah burgers, fries, and shakes. Start your weekend off right. Start your week off right, with a little bit of indulgence on the burger side, a little bit of indulgence on the lunch side. Swing by Mooyah Burgers and Fries and Shakes. They've got 2 locations, Segan, just north of Industrialplex, Blue Bonnet at Highland. Get yourself a classic double cheeseburger dressed the way you like it. Get yourself a barbecue bacon burger, a hamburger dog, a double Diablo, a ranch hand, a well-dunion, a best queso Nario. They've got these and so much more. And if you don't like any of the burgers that they list out on their menu, build your own, for crying out loud. And grab yourself some fries. Might I suggest the sweet potato fries, and get yourself some honey to dip them in. It is a game changer. Blue Bonnet at Highland, Segan just north of Industrialplex. It's Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Time for top stories and trending. Let's hit it. Traffic headaches won't go away until a new Mississippi River Bridge is built, but like I-10 during even a minor accident, those plans are at a standstill. Well-written lead sentence, WBRZ. Back in December, the Capital Area Road and Bridge District took a step back while looking for possible sites for a new bridge. There were 17 locations considered. Now it's back up to 20. Well, it's time to narrow those down. One of the big hang-ups for legislators during the session in approving $500 million that the governor is proposing be set aside for a new bridge is determining an exact location. Well, parish presidents hope for some answers this afternoon when the Capital Area Road and Bridge District meets, and they hope to get the $500 million Governor John Bel Edwards had set aside. The committee is expected to narrow down a possible location to fewer than 10 sites, which parish leaders say could help secure those funds. The meeting is going to take place at 3 p.m. this afternoon at the state capitol. I will say this. Narrowing it down to under 10 isn't going to get it done. Narrowing it down to 1 can sway some opinions. Had a couple of elections on Saturday. Couple of runoffs, couple of outright wins. Jordan Faircloth and Brad Myers will be in a runoff for an open judgeship in the 19th JDC. By the way, fewer than 13,500 people voted in that race. And we had Jordan, we had Brad, we had Jen Rocca on as well. Jordan Faircloth and Brad Myers in the runoff for that one. Darrell Hurst was elected outright to a seat on the Metro Council, filling the seat for District 5. His 2,100 votes pushed him to defeat 2 others without a runoff. If you can get 2,100 votes and win without a runoff, does not speak well for turnout. By the way, Vanessa LaFleur also advanced without a runoff to fill the open state House seat in Baton Rouge's 101st District. That was my district. That's Ted James's former district as he's moved on to Washington, D.C. The sound of gunfire sent people scrambling Saturday night at an off-campus LSU apartment complex. Baton Rouge Police Department responded to the shooting around 9 p.m. at Ion Baton Rouge on West Chime Street. There's an apartment complex on West Chimes with a rooftop pool? Police said an argument erupted at a large pool party on the roof of the complex, and someone fired shots. Oh my goodness, how Chime Street has changed. I'm sorry, I'm dating myself horribly here. PD believes there's no ongoing threat to campus, is what they said at the time. No further information is available on this story. A suspect is in custody nearly a week after a man was found lying dead in the middle of his neighborhood over the weekend. That's not this past weekend, the one before. Baton Rouge police said the shooting happened around 3:55 a.m. the previous Saturday at the intersection of Cedar Lane and Silverest. Officers arrived to find 37-year-old Ryan Marlowe in the roadway with multiple gunshot wounds, pronounced dead at the scene. On Friday, heading into this weekend, police arrested 32-year-old Bobby Earl for his involvement in the killing. Earl was booked on charges of second-degree murder and illegal use of a weapon. By the way, Earl was booked in January 2021 for second-degree murder, and according to court records, surprise, 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 he was out on bond. I mean, rinse, repeat, right? We have the police chief on once a month. He has talked on numerous occasions about how frustrating it is to keep rearresting the same people for committing similar crimes. Number one takes us actually outside of the parish, but brings us right back in. Police have identified a pair of suspects involved in a shooting at a nightclub that left one person hurt over the weekend. St. Gabriel Police Department said one person was shot Saturday night at the Foxtrap nightclub. The victim was taken to a hospital for treatment. That person's current condition is unknown. Yesterday afternoon, police released photos of the two suspects connected with the shooting. By this morning, investigators had identified the suspects as Braxton Savoy and Marshall Nettles. Both of them are from Baton Rouge. Detectives are asking anyone with information on the shooting or information on the two men. Contact Crime Stoppers at 344-STOP. Those are your top stories. Here's a look at what's trending this morning outside of the slap heard around the world. Ward Creek plays a major role in drainage for the southern part of East Baton Rouge. Neighbors who live nearby, which is what would make them neighbors, tell our news partners at WBRZ they're relieved to see work being done. Quote, it's one of the larger projects we're addressing. It takes quite a bit of work. Today is concrete panel repair. Yesterday there was a giant hole just down in the tributary. Mayor's office spokesperson Mark Armstrong explained. Erosion has caused parts of the concrete to break up and leave holes along the side of the concrete and blockage. This is one of several major maintenance projects the city is working on after receiving federal funding. Quote, we've used a large chunk of our American Rescue Plan funds for drainage and EBR. We've identified that as being one of the more pressing needs. This particular creek is one of the most significant drainage systems within the parish. Those are your top stories in trending. We're running late. Quick break. Coming back with Medical Monday next. And just dive right in because I've got the bumper attached to it. See, if Will Smith thing had been the actor in Coda, we wouldn't be having this convo. I don't know what I didn't see Coda. Years ago, a drunk guy fell from that pool area like 6 stories up. Oh! Yikes. Yeah, it's in today's folder. She is. How'd you spell her name? Hindricks. Hindrichs. Yes. All right. Did South Carolina dump a Gatorade cooler full of confetti on their coach? That's the weakest shit I've ever seen.
It's time time for Medical Monday, brought to you in the interest of your health by Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center.
Yes, it is time for Medical Monday. Yes, it is time to talk with the folks from Our Lady of the Lake. And today we're going to be talking developmental medicine. We have the director, the operations director of children's development over at McMains, which has recently teamed up with Our Lady of the Lake, and we'll get into that in a little while. But time to welcome aboard Ann Heinrichs. Ann, welcome. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, glad to have you on here today. Glad to be talking about this because we got a lot of ground to cover. And it's just, there's a lot that I don't think most folks really know about, myself included. Let's start with the most basic question there is. What is developmental medicine?
So developmental medicine covers the growth of children from birth all the way through adolescence. And it is all of the doctors, the therapy, all of that comes in, looking at a child with their nervous system and their brain development.
And what kind of children would this apply to? Because I mean, I don't know that we all partake in this or have all utilized these services. Who would this be directed at?
Children who have any kind of developmental delay or children who have developmental disabilities. So more so the kids with developmental disabilities, which would be a learning disability, attention deficit, autism, cerebral palsy, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. But you do have kids who have developmental delays that may have missed a little bit late on their milestones that might need some extra help that way.
Okay. I think autism was probably the one that garners the most attention. Do y'all run into that where, like, reputation-wise, that's what most people know you for?
A little bit. We see all kids, and so we have probably about 50% of the kids we see actually have developmental delays, believe it or not. But we do have kids with autism who come, and cerebral palsy, and the works. Any child who's struggling can come.
This parents need to know what to look out for in order to know whether or not they need you for their kids. What are some of the signs of developmental delays that a parent should be on the lookout for?
Each child, when you have a child, you follow. When you go to those doctor visits, they give you what are the milestones that you're looking for. When does a child begin to speak? When does a child begin to crawl, to walk, to be able to pick up things with their fingers? And there's so many things that's part of that development that as soon as a baby is born that we begin to track. So when a parent, anytime they notice something that they just feel like, what's going on here, then it is good to reach out to your doctor or to a clinic like us to be able to ask those questions to see what's going on.
Treating children is infinitely more difficult than treating adults, if for no other reason than children can't communicate like adults can, especially when you're talking about at a developmental stage. What goes into the diagnostic process when the parents come in?
Usually there's a lot of questions asked about birth history. There's questions asked about what is the parent seeing, what are the concerns. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of listening as to what's happening with that child. The other thing that'll come up, too, is, of course, observation, where that doctor or therapist, whoever's working with the family, would also observe and see the child. A lot of times there's questionnaires that kind of look at, if as the child gets older and they're in preschool or whatever, that you're looking at, is this happening on all different fronts? So is this something that you see at home, but are you also seeing it at school? And what does that look like on the ball field? If the child's struggling with just being able to just totally off on trying to hit a ball in baseball, and it's T-ball kind of thing where they're struggling there.
This sounds like a lot of people would be involved, especially in the observation end. How important is teamwork over at McMains?
Teamwork is huge. Can't do it without teamwork. Each of those disciplines that come together are talking and looking and listening. Biggest part is listening, hearing the story of being able to figure out what is the game plan for that child. What is the game plan for the parents to be able to help that child become as independent as they possibly can? And sometimes that's very simple, but sometimes it can be very complicated in putting all those pieces together. So there's things that I might look at. My background, even though as director of McMains, my background with it has been social work. So I look from a social work side to it. But we have speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, educational, that then look at that whole approach to the child to be able to say, well, your child's not walking right now. They're 15 months old, not walking, maybe starting to pull up, definitely crawling, but maybe the child's vocabulary is just flowing hugely to where the focus right now is on speech. So that would be important to know, because then the physical therapist could say, no, it's coming. I think the speech side of this is where the focus is, and we'll keep an eye on the physical side. And that would be within normal development.
Okay, you mentioned game plan. By the way, Ann Heinrichs, the operations director of children's development over at McMains, which is now part of Our Lady of the Lake. And you mentioned the game plan a minute ago. I wanted to walk down that path a little bit, because from the way you're telling the story, I would think that having a game plan and adapting a game plan are two different things. Like, sounds like there's a remarkable amount of importance on being malleable and continuing to listen.
Absolutely. Again, listening is the number one thing for anything, and being heard. And knowing, because we are not there every day. And we all know when you have car trouble, you take your car into the shop, and it does not do whatever was wrong. And then you don't observe it, but at the same time, you know from listening to the person, you can kind of figure out what's going on. Children are certainly not cars, but it's a similar thing that the parent knows. Parents know their kids, and being able to listen to what's happening and to hear how those things come along, then that sets up that game plan. But it's always changing. And so as those little people develop and move along and come into new situations, then you are always changing the plan to make sure that it's what that child needs.
Now, once you've gotten down to the diagnosis, once everything has been kind of whittled down and you figure out what is actually up and what needs work, what are some of the paths for treatment?
So, and just to make sure, too, because I don't think I mentioned earlier, we do actual evaluations and standardized tests that go along with the observations and getting the birth history and the family history. Then with that, then an actual health plan is written. So there's a therapy plan, individualized therapy plan, that will then be put into place for that child, and it's per discipline. So if the child is coming and they're receiving physical therapy, there's a plan based on that. Child is receiving speech therapy, the plan is based on that. And then our therapists will then interact with each other to also be able to work together with that as well. So then we do whatever that evidence-based practice is that works for that child that would be with that. Like a child who has learning disabilities, then we're going to look more at a multisensory, hands-on approach to be able to use to teach educational type skills.
When it all comes down to it, any form of therapy, any form of treatment is going to be applied differently for children than it is for adults as well. And I think this next question is kind of leading us into the recent teaming up with Our Lady of the Lake Children's Health. This level of resources, this level of teamwork, this level of collaboration, what does this recent pairing up with Our Lady of the Lake, how does it extend the scope of services available for y'all?
It opens many, many more doors to be able to reach many, many, many more children. Dr. Felix, the developmental pediatrician who's over at the Goodwood Clinic, then plays a role in that. They have a neuropsychologist who's with them. They also have the occupational, physical, speech therapy, so we have more services to offer there. They have ABA, whereas we have a lot of the augmentative communication that we bring and the educational. It's bringing all of these resources together to be able to help each of these families.
One of the things about Our Lady of the Lake Children's, with the standalone facility and everything else that's come recently, has been about positioning to be out in front when it comes to children's health, like a nationwide leader when it comes to children's health, just with expanded resources. And the teaming up with McMains is obviously one of those partnerships. What are y'all doing to stay out ahead of the curve, to make sure that others from around the nation are looking at us to make sure we're doing to learn how to do it the right way?
We are always researching, paying attention to what is the latest, but not just the latest, what is the best, what is grounded in science and research, that what needs to be done, for these children. We're also paying attention to what is going on around the internationally as well as nationally to make sure that we are bringing that here to be able to continue along with that. We do hope that coming together at some point that we will also have a standalone clinic, all of us together, which is kind of the conversation at this point, to be able to do that, to have that place that would be able to offer all those types of services in one place.
For parents that are listening right now and they might have some questions about their own kids or kids that their kids are friends with, that sort of thing, where should they go to learn more?
They can go to our website, which is mcmainscdc.org. They can also go to ololchildren.org. And they're also welcome to call at 225-923-3420 just to get information. We do have a social worker and a patient care coordinator who are able to help just to kind of connect into the community what services and things are available to offer that guidance.
Hey, before we get you out of here, if I could squeeze another minute or so out of this phone call, just because it's something I'm personally curious about. When in contact with the parents, what level of hesitation do you find, or what do you find them most hesitant about in addressing concerns that could affect their children?
I think one of the biggest thing is the fear factor of the unknown. And the more education and being able just to talk to someone and say, this is what I'm seeing, and what do I need to do, and helping them to understand what is autism, what is cerebral palsy, what is a learning disability, and helping them know that there is a path, and it's just thinking about it differently, and not necessarily that there's a huge problem on it, that there's other ways to go about it. I mean, we have bike programs here, we have a canoe trip that we do, we have a capable arts camp, to where kids that even with disabilities are very capable of doing all of these things, the same as any other child, and they all deserve to play.
And we appreciate your time. As always, that was Medical Monday, presented by Our Lady of the Lake. Time for us to get you caught up with CBS News here on Talk 107.3 FM, the new flavor of talk.
I'm Jeff Palermo, the Talk 107.3 Baton Rouge Newsroom. We are expecting to learn this morning that state lawmakers will hold another veto session as they will attempt to override the governor's veto of the congressional district map approved by the Republican-led legislature last month. LawPolitics.com publisher Jeremy Alford says it will take 70 votes in the House and 20 votes in the Senate to override the veto, and there are 68 Republicans in the House.
There's going to have to be buy-in from Democrats for this to work. Republicans can't get there on their own, and then you had at least one Republican in the House who already voted against the congressional map.
The veto session would begin Wednesday, and the regular session would be temporarily halted. State lawmakers are looking at ways to address the teacher shortage. The Superintendent of Education, Cade Brumley, says they need about 2,500 teachers. Brumley supports a bill called the Go Teach Fund that would provide scholarship dollars to college students who are studying to become a teacher.
It would create an opportunity for us to go into our high schools and recruit some of our best and brightest students across Louisiana and ask them to consider a career in education.
The legislation is heading to the House floor after it was approved by House Education. A movie called 57 Seconds starring Oscar winner Morgan Freeman and the Hunger Games' Josh Hutcherson will begin filming in Lafayette in 2 weeks. President of the Lafayette Economic Development Authority, Mandy Mitchell, says they are looking for workers.
Camera operators, assistant directors, electricians, grips, art directors, makeup artists. So we have this information on our website.
I have not seen an email from the booking agency that got me the. This guy's a pretty big deal in the film world. Ryan J. He's a film critic. He. One of America's most popular nationally syndicated film critics. Anyway, I didn't get an email saying we can't talk about the Will Smith thing. So. And when I do get those emails, I promptly ignore them. Association. We're going to talk about the potential veto override session of the congressional district map. And we're going to talk about energy and supply chain issues. Supply chain issues. Huh. Well, the number of people saying this was staged is kind of ridiculous. Huh? Tell you what, it all like this. The fallout from this depends a lot on generational. Whew. 737 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Going to get you caught up on the Oscars in about 15 minutes. Right now, though, let's get you caught up on what's going on at the state legislature and what's going on in the energy and supply chain world. Stephen Wagerspack heads up the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. He joins us every Monday and joins us right now. Stephen, appreciate you hopping on board, man. How are you this morning?
Brian, doing great. How you doing, man?
I could not be better. You know what? I'm finding myself on the wrong end of an argument this morning.
Oh, what you got?
Well, I got Will Smith's back. I mean, you make fun of my
Give
wife.
me the rationale for that.
You make fun of my wife on a worldwide stage, and you have to expect a reaction. My rationale is chivalry's not dead.
Well, but when you put yourself in situations, you have to be aware of those situations. If he's a front row seat at an awards ceremony that is well known for comedians going on stage and cracking jokes on the people who sit up there.
Like I said, I'm on the wrong end of the argument. I know.
Go up at thin skin and look, and all that and more. But a couple of things that have been discussed about that whole thing. One, if you're going to have that moment where you're going to go up and you're going to yell profanities, you go up the stage, I'm surprised he went with the open hand slap and not the closed fist. To be honest with you, if you're going to do all that, finish the job. And the other piece I would say is not enough has been said about Chris Rock's ability to take a slap to the face on national television.
Oh yeah,
stand there and go on with the show. I mean, kudos to Chris Rock. I would like to think in that situation, I would have the guts and the manpower to just take it like that and move on. So Chris Rock's tough to underestimate.
Absolutely. He took what is going to be labeled as a, quote, Oscar moment and kept it at just a moment and not ending the show.
That's right.
Because if he comes back swinging, then the whole thing's over with for the night.
The show must go on. Next thing you know, you got actors doing the sissy fight on stage, and it's just going to be just an unimpressive drama.
Would they call in stunt doubles?
Oh, well, the seat fillers have to come in, I guess, and be fight fillers. I mean, can you fight fill just as well as you can seat fill? That's what we got to figure out, right?
Hey, speaking of fight filling, what's going to go on with a veto override session this week? You like the segue?
That's a great segue. I'm impressed with that. We shall see, but I'll tell you what, this is unprecedented drama coming up in the legislature this year. Just to give folks a quick flavor, every year when there's a session and there's vetoes involved, there's an automatic veto override session that happens unless within 30 days, one chamber, either the House or the Senate, by 50% of their members say no thanks. Mm-hmm. And usually what happens every single year since 1974 is 20 senators writing a letter to the governor and say no thanks. And that's why we've never had veto sessions except for very, very, very rarely. This year, no one's writing a letter. No one's saying no thanks. And so the 30-day clock clicks for this week. So Wednesday what will happen is they're going to go into the override session and consider that congressional veto the governor had. And the question is, will the legislature slap it down like Will Smith and have the votes? Or will that congressional district bill that's vetoed stand there like Chris Rock and move on and become law? That's going to be the question. And what's even more drama is we've never had a veto override session inside another session.
Right.
And so let's say scenario-wise they vote to override the governor. Someone's probably going to sue. You can't have two sessions at once, and that's probably going to go to state court. Let's say they don't override and the bill becomes law. There'll probably be they do override. And if it becomes law, that'll be that. And in the other ways, it can have been federal courts. And so you could have two different court systems, two different scenarios. And look, the votes are going to be tight. You've got disagreements right now between the GOP leader in the House and the Speaker as to what's going to happen. And so there's all kind of interesting plot twists on this one.
So, yes, and we saw a veto override session at the end of the last year's regular session. They all came back to town and did absolutely nothing. That is not giving me a whole lot of confidence that anything will get done with this one.
Look, overriding a governor on any issue is difficult. It's hard. Over the years, there's been a tremendous amount of precedence given to governors on this. It's an important check and balance, quite frankly. It's one of the things that makes sure that you always have a backstop for legislation. So that's why there's a big precedence there. What makes this one a little unique, and again, it is a coin flip. I don't know what's going to happen. What makes it a little unique is this isn't really a policy issue per se or a law. This is really the lines that Congress is really looking at. And so you've got members of the congressional delegation weighing in with their legislators. Typically, you don't have that. And so that's why there is an additional juice in the building this week because of that. So that's why I think take a closer look. It will be more contested and competitive. People will probably realize, and then we'll just have to see what happens from there.
From a pragmatism standpoint, Stephen, and this has been my take, and it might be a little bit oversimplified, but from a pragmatism standpoint, doesn't it make the most sense to override the veto and force this thing to the courts? Because no matter what happens, it's going to end up in the courts, so let's expedite the whole darn process.
I would agree with that. I think that's right from a pragmatist point of view, because to your point, if this thing's going to end up in court anyway, let's just get there and get it going, get the discussion going. So I would agree with that. However, I would just add my own personal opinion on top of that. I think the maps are good maps. And I think the congressional delegation we have right now are good members of Congress. I mean, we spend a lot of time working with those guys. You got a lot of good members up in Congress doing good work. I don't know why we'd want to disrupt that. And so I just think from a continuity perspective, also for the state, I hope this maps become law. I hope court challenges are not successful, and hope we can get back to work with our delegation, try to solve some of the problems we have in the state.
I completely agree. And by the way, also working on that pragmatism standpoint, you mentioned checks and balances. This would be an opportunity to, for lack of a better term, throw an elbow or slap down the governor for a check and balance that's never happened.
That is correct. That's correct. It has never happened. One day it will.
Yeah.
And, this does feel like one of those issues because it's not a controversial policy issue that impacts the kitchen table or anything like that. This really is, where the, wonky lines demographers, draw on congressional maps. And so this seems like a ripe issue, especially since, members of Congress are weighing in with their legislators and making their voice heard. So you put all that together, it does feel like this could be the pierce the veil issue that gets that override.
Stephen Wagasback, president of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, is our guest, as he is every Monday. We might circle back on the legislature if we have time on the back end of the segment, but I got to get to what you're up to right now. You're out of town right now for, what I feel is a pretty important conversation.
Yeah, I'm in Austin, Texas for a couple of days, and, I'm here representing the state chamber at LABI. We have some of our local brethren from Louisiana. Adam Knapp is here from Baton Rouge. George Swift from Lake Charles is here, a few others. And we're meeting with state, local, and federal U.S. chamber officials for the next couple of days, and we're talking about some of the important issues facing the country. Yesterday, we heard some foreign policy briefings on Ukraine and Russia and that situation. And, the big thing that stood out to me is, one, what we heard yesterday is the sanctions are starting to work on Russia. And the little things, like it's hard to build a car when you can't get one or two or three parts. We saw that in our American dealerships last couple of years, and the chips weren't coming in. And so if you go to every industry in Russia, there's a couple of parts they're dependent on outside sources that are now limited. So their manufacturing and their business base is starting to grind to a halt. So that's the good news. The other piece, though, on the energy front, one, when America said we're not going to buy Russian gas anymore, it's really no big deal. We don't get a whole lot from there. So that doesn't hurt them much.
Right.
The big thing we've got to fix is Europe gets about 40% of their gas from Russia, and that's where we got to start winding that down, and that's been more tricky, and that's why it really shines a spotlight on how stupid our American policy is right now of restricting American energy, oil, and gas. If we would be blowing and going like we were only a couple of years ago, providing clean natural gas, liquefied, shipping all over the world, we could look Europe in the eye and say, hey, don't worry, we got this. Turn off that Russian gas, turn on American gas. We're a plug-and-play option for you. But we can't say that right now because the last couple of years, President Biden has basically, clamped down on that. And that's a big spotlight on how bad that problem is over the last couple of years and why they're desperately trying to pretend like they're trying to open it up right now by doing little, minor things to get us going again.
Former Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette was in the news a lot last week. He was on the show talking about it as well. Liquefied natural gas coming from Louisiana could be a game changer on the European front when it comes to this. How would we go about staying on the front end of the conversation to make sure that Louisiana jobs remain in the forefront?
It's pretty easy. All you have to do is the administration in D.C. has to start issuing permits and clear timelines on how they're going to get those things permitted, and then stop talking out of the other side of their mouth to the financial markets and saying how much they hate oil and gas. If they say, look, if we want to have a strong economy and a cleaner environment for this world, the key is American oil and gas because we know how to produce it, we've got enough to supply the world, and there's no better technology and environmental predictions anywhere than how we produce it as compared to other countries. So we're going to double down on this for the long haul. If they said that and started issuing permits, people would start going for permits and building these facilities, and financial markets would be willing to put their money on the line and fund it. Right now, the financial markets, they see, some of the permits, coming out, but what they also hear is the president saying, but don't get confused, we still hate oil and gas. And financiers are not going to put their money on the line if they think the rug is going to be pulled back from underneath them. So the rhetoric has to change, the permits have to flow. If so, no state benefits more than Louisiana.
Hey, back to the supply chain stuff, and Stephen Wagasback's our guest. Stephen, back to the supply chain stuff. You're saying sanctions are starting to work, and we're starting to see the grinding to a halt or crumbling within Russia. What happens first, though? They come to a halt, they crumble, or we feel the pinch in our pockets a little bit more as well from those same supply chain? Because the sanctions are, I don't think we're out of the woods yet with supply chain.
No, it's a great question. And what we also heard there is just a couple points on that. One, if your business and your needs, if your home renovation needs steel or aluminum, you better put your order in now, because they definitely expected that shortage to become increased, as the year goes on. And so that was a clear takeaway is there. And on that front of like who's going to get hurt most, it's kind of a tie at this point, and that's why you're seeing record high inflation on some of our areas. What they're saying is, the key is kind of how China and India kind of respond to this. And India is the key. India is trying to be kind of the neutral territory, and if they can, pick up some of that supply chain, obviously that would be a game changer for countries like us. But they're also going to be doing the same thing to help Russia. They kind of play both sides. And then China is the one they're trying to figure out whether they're going to use this moment as a way to really double down and be Russia-like and try to be, take that approach, or if they're going to see Russia flailing and they come out and try to, repair some of their relationships and improve some of those supply chain issues. And some of the economists yesterday were saying that's the thing to watch. How China, if Russia really is crippled and damaged, how does China respond to that? Go in and save Russia and be their friend, or walk away from their damaged friend and become more of a somewhat a fake reliable partner for the next year or two to get through this.
Got less than a minute to go with Stephen Wagerspack. Got to hit you with a curveball on the way out, though. Is Bill Cassidy going to run for governor?
Well, it is interesting that the Advocate article this weekend was there. And, my takeaway is this. People need to get ready for next fall, because you pretty much have every statewide elected official office open. You've got probably about 30 legislative seats, almost 30, open. You're going to have a lot of movement, a lot of candidates for a lot of races, and everyone who's elected to anything is seeing this. And so, yes, you're going to begin to see a lot of names, take a look at a lot of different races. And so as the voter, I think that's a good thing for you. You're going to have options. You're going to have the ability to decide what makes sense for you or not. So whether it's Senator Cassidy, whether it's Congressman Graves, whether it's the ones you hear about, whether it's Brian Haldane, who knows? This is a wide open race. Anything can happen.
Which one are you running for?
Your radio gig if you run for governor.
Well played, sir. Well played. He is Stephen Wagerspack, president of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. We always appreciate the time. Have fun in Austin, and we'll talk to you next week.
I will, man. Take care.
You too. You too. That was Stephen Wagerspack, president of LABI. Let's go from legislative matters over to the matters at hand, open hand, as it were. Ryan Jay is he's one of America's most popular nationally syndicated film critics. We had him booked out to talk about the Oscars, talk about the films themselves, and hopefully that will rule these next few minutes, but I'm sure the headlines are going to rule the first into this as well. Talking about last night's Oscar awards, Ryan Jay, welcome to Talk 107.3. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing very well. So I had you all slated out to talk about a bunch of movies that you've seen that I haven't, and then Will Smith did his thing. So how much does that overshadow the night?
Oh, completely. I mean, it reminds me of, as I'm here with you now, it reminds me of the morning after the debacle between La La Land and Moonlight. I spent the evening after the show, as I did last night, doing statistics and analysis of all the awards. But, of course, none of that work is important today. All anybody wants to talk about is the scandal of Will Smith. And it really is the most scandalous, disgraceful, and unsuitable behavior that we've seen at the Oscars, and let alone from any A-list role model, the likes of Will Smith. So it bears weight in discussion, but I think that the court of public opinion will create the legend of Will Smith more than anything else.
Okay, let's follow that path, but keep it on task with film. Have we seen a comp to this before? Have we seen something comparable to this before, and how has it affected an actor's career?
Oh, that's such a good question. I just think about things like, we're living at a time where consequences and accountability is more important than ever. We hear words and phrases like cancel culture and wokeness, and we see things like Whoopi Goldberg making a mistake, apologizing for it on The View, getting suspended, coming back, doing an apology tour, that sort of thing, learning from, working with people. I don't know. I mean, so far the response to Will Smith is somewhat divided. Some people are really supporting his behavior. Other people are just horrified by it. And it will be very interesting to see in the coming days and weeks what kind of damage control his team, he's when someone is as famous as Will Smith, you're not alone. You've got a team of people. He's got managers and agents and publicists, and any film that would work with him in the future. I mean, look at how Johnny Depp had to step down from playing Grindelwald in the Fantastic Beasts Harry Potter series because of the domestic violence allegations and potential proof there. So, I mean, this is assault that we all witnessed. We are all shocked by. Some people are interestingly defending it, which is
I'm in that camp.
Confusing to me. You're defending it?
I absolutely am. He stood up for his woman. I did don't tell me chivalry's dead. Wrong tactic, right heart, right place of his heart.
Oh, well, what you're pointing out, wrong tactic. That's the thing. I agree. The sentiment is there, and the words that he shouted and the rest of it. But you don't rush the Oscar stage. I mean, you don't you can't. You could be arrested for that, right? You could be arrested for spitting on someone. So I just kind of think we teach our children not to behave that way, and I think this is a really bad look for an Oscar winner, for an A-list star, and a role model to behave that way.
All right, let's talk film for a little bit. Where you're this is where we called on you. We wanted to actually stay on task a little bit. Coda, Apple Original Films. We talk about it with the Emmys a lot. Now it's making its way to the Oscars. Streaming is where it's at.
It is, and the industry's been changing for quite a while. Remember the days when a movie would be in theaters, and then it would be weeks and months before it would arrive on home video or to a cable channel. And now we're seeing it in a span of days or weeks, or sometimes they're being released directly on streaming services. Netflix is very upset that Coda won Best Picture last night. Let me tell you that. It's a huge, huge win for Apple TV+. Coda also is the first film in recent memory that is such a crowd pleaser, family-friendly, beautiful movies, feel-good film to win in that category also. So there's a lot to celebrate with Coda's win.
You say Netflix is upset. They had Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up is the one I actually saw. Good movie. I don't know if it was Best Picture worthy. Why is Netflix upset?
Netflix was upset because they wanted Power of the Dog to win, and Power of the Dog going into awards season and going into the Oscars really had all the momentum and was favored to win Best Picture. They, of course, won for Best Director with Jane Campion for that film, but Netflix, the amount of marketing and awards campaigning that Netflix did was unparalleled for the Power of the Dog. So I think they were quite surprised that Coda won Best Picture.
Got about a minute and a half left with syndicated film critic Ryan J. Ryan, I hesitate to even ask this, but outside of Will Smith, other than that, what were the big standout moments?
So much. I mean, there were so many fabulous reunions last night. The theme was Movie Lovers Unite, and it was really fun seeing those people come back together. I think Rachel Zegler making fun of the fact that she just got invited to present. She, of course, played Maria in West Side Story, getting to present after she wasn't originally going to be slated to be at the Oscars. Tiffany Haddish and Simu Liu were so funny presenting. Mila Kunis on stage was great. I mean, Beyonce opening the show, it didn't feel like the Oscars. The show started with so much promise, and it was refreshed in a lot of ways. And the hosts, I mean, these Wanda and Amy and Regina were so outstanding. I just wanted more from them. They were so good.
In our remaining time, you know what? Getting back to Will Smith real quick, one of the topics that's been going around this morning is, was it staged?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yes. Well, it was not. It was not staged. If you can watch, like, The Guardian and other places have the uncensored version, and when you watch it and hear it and see it, it's just really, really shocking. And I think that's why maybe I'm reacting. I would encourage you to watch it, because I feel so bad for Chris Rock in the moment. Like when you see the uncensored video, and we'll come around. We'll see what Will has to say about it. There's certainly going to be a lot of discussion, and these guys aren't going away. So we're going to be talking about this and dealing with it for a while.
He is Ryan J. He's a syndicated film critic. We greatly appreciate the time this morning. I appreciate you hopping on board for a couple minutes.
Great talking to you.
Likewise. I wanted more time with him. Look, he's been doing a ton of interviews this morning, and I appreciate a couple minutes. There was no way we weren't going to talk about Will Smith, but I had so much to talk about as well. From King Richard to West Side Story. Anyway, we got to take a quick break. Let's check CBS News. Coming back for Hour 3 next. So that was the only time on the whole rundown. They had a 3-hour window where he's booking out. So he went, I want to say he was on in Philadelphia right before, West Philadelphia. He was on in Philadelphia just before us. That was the only window we had with him. So I had to take it and blow out the clock. Let's get back to some of the comments here because it's been fun, to say the least. Tiffany says, can we agree that he chose the wrong joke? Make a joke about her entanglements or about her protesting award shows. Well, he did that before. Yeah, he did call her out before, so it's not like this is the first time he has, I don't want to say picked on her, but it's not the first time that she's been in his crosshairs. On a side note, I think Jada and Demi look great, with or without hair. Making fun of their appearance is a fool's game. I agree with that. Tiffany caught it. Steven said, you don't go up there and not finish the job. My guy Wags. Beat him down. Okay, Nyquilus is in the fake camp. So I saw the clip from The Guardian that Ryan was talking about, and yeah, I'm hard-pressed to think that was fake. Anna says, Jada has alopecia, which is not a deadly disease. I no longer watch the Oscars, but I read the article and watched the replay this AM, and I agree she is beautiful. Yes, it's not a deadly disease, but it's also something that's not of her own doing. Like, you don't make fun... I've said my piece on that. Are we going to have to blow out traffic here? Because we got it in 4 minutes anyway, so just get past it. Cool. Anna says Slapgate is a distraction. From what? Javier Bardem not winning Best Actor for being the Ricardos, which was a fantastic movie. Although, so I'm probably the biggest Aaron Sorkin fan in Louisiana, okay? And Aaron Sorkin wrote Being the Ricardos. I would go so far as to say this. The turn at the end was so Aaron Sorkin that even I shrugged my shoulders. Don't Look Up is nowhere near Best Picture quality. It was fun. I got it. I got the message, completely enjoyed the message. By the way, looking at it through a different lens, there's another side to that argument that they could be making fun of people that were... We think we know who they're making fun of. But I think they might have been making fun of a completely different set of people. Anyway, Ryan J was good. Damn. More of that. Uh-huh. Okay. Why wasn't traffic in that break? Because that was the break that should have run at 52 to 55. All right. I hope Condon's in tomorrow. I got to get him in. Okay, well. Oh. Wait, he told you? Anna's here? So we're going to skip the outside in just to do this day in history. Give it room to run. We've done it before, but... Actually, no. I got to do one story from the outside in. Yeah, intro and everything. Yeah, Javier Bardem was really good in being the Ricardos. I didn't see the Serena, Venus and Serena movie. So I don't know that we're going to get Condon on this week. It was funny, but just felt rudimentary. So, okay. Nyquilus, answer me this. Who do you think they were making fun of? King Richard was a great movie, can't deny that. Today is Joe Fortunato's birthday. Played 12 seasons with the Chicago Bears. I think I have that. Actually, don't play the opener for Outside In. It's going to eat up too much time. Yeah. They were making fun of QAnon. Okay. They were making fun of QAnon. Interesting. Okay. Wow. Actually, that, sheesh. So I couldn't tell if they were making fun of climate change deniers or COVID deniers. But QAnon sums up the whole thing. It puts both of them in the same category. Anyway, I think there's something to be said for they were also making fun of the people who put their full faith in the government because those people died too. 806 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Hour 3 coming your way right now. Brian here with you. Jake producing. Got a busy hour this hour. Speaker Clay Shexnayder going to join us in our next segment. Talk a little bit about the goings-on of the state legislature, not the least of which is going to be, will we see a veto override? What's going to happen starting Wednesday when they have to push pause? Obviously, the speaker is not going to have a whip count right now, but there's been a ton of talk about what may happen. We'll get his best guess, as it were. But keep in mind, everyone's going to have a guess. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that and then a little bit about getting business back on track. He is, after all, the speaker. So when you push pause and then you have to get it back around to it, how do you send everyone to their respective corners, have a different fight, and then have everyone go back out to the previous one? So we will talk with Speaker Clay Shexnayder at 8:15. Also, I'm looking forward to this one. Who should police noise from Baton Rouge bars and restaurants? The Metro Council is split. Denise Amoroso has an interesting idea. Shauna Banks is Shauna Banks. And we'll talk about it at 8:35. Denise is set to be in studio with us. Right now, though, well, not right now. In just a second, Jake's going to have this day in history to talk to Ryan J. about the Oscars, which has obviously been the biggest headline of the morning. We had to skip past the segment we do every day where we step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish for the Outside In. I don't want to do the full-on Outside In here. I do just want to update you on one story. It came out of West Baton Rouge Parish. A second victim was found dead yesterday morning after a reported stabbing in Bruley. The West Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office told our news partners at WBRZ a second body was discovered Sunday afternoon in a nearby field. The victim's death is believed to be connected to a stabbing earlier Sunday morning. Deputies initially responded to reports of a stabbing on Lukeville Lane around 9:30 a.m. An unidentified victim was found dead at the scene. The Sheriff's Office officials report a person of interest was detained Sunday afternoon. And that is what we know to this point. So, did not want to skip past the entire segment without at least reporting on that news. And with that being said, that's the outside in. Here comes This Day in History.
Yes, sir. It is time for This Day in History. We're kicking things off in 1797. Nathaniel Briggs of New Hampshire patents a washing machine.
Nice!
Nice indeed. 1866, the first ambulance goes into service. I bet
Wait.
traffic didn't clear as much as they
This
hoped.
day in like 1870-something, Barnum and Bailey teamed up to make the greatest show on earth. Yeah. Heard that on First Light on the way in this morning.
Well, there you go.
I like the circus. You like the circus? I like the circus.
I don't mind it.
Hey, circuses are kind of going away now.
They are,
I have a
but,
friend who was in Barnum and Bailey.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he went to clown college. Like, that's a legit thing.
Really?
Yeah.
How
A
long
Michigan
is the
State
degree
graduate,
program
and then he
for
went to
that?
clown college. Do what?
What's the degree program?
I never asked. Very talented clown, though.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
1885, the U.S. Salvation Army is officially organized.
Okay.
1930, Turkish cities Constantinople and Angora changed their names to Istanbul and Ankara.
Okay.
You know, I thought I should know this by now, but I didn't know Constantinople was Istanbul.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I just...
We are failing our youth if they're not teaching
I knew
that.
of Constantinople plenty, and I know of Istanbul. But I
Right.
never realized that.
Never saw them in the same room together, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's like Batman and Bruce Wayne. Spoiler alert. Sorry for any of those in a...
Who have never heard of Batman?
Yeah, sorry about that, y'all.
I think fewer people have heard of Istanbul.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right.
1933, the first SEC men's basketball tournament. Kentucky beats Mississippi State thrilling 46-27.
Based off my track record in this NCAA tournament, I probably would have taken the over in that one, too.
Oh, yeah.
So bad.
1957, the first national curling championship is held.
You like curling?
I like it better.
I actually dig the curling. I got into it, like, ironically, like being sarcastic about it.
Pointing
But then
fun
turn
at it.
out, like, I kind of like it.
It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
They're doing their hardest right there. 1971, the last original edition of The Ed Sullivan Show broadcasts on CBS TV.
Okay.
1972, just 1 year later, Wilt Chamberlain plays his last pro basketball game.
All right.
In 1990, Michael Jordan scores 69 points. 69 points. It was his fourth time that he scores 60 points in a game. Keep in mind, this is 1990.
Yeah.
Only what, his fifth or sixth professional season?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, in 2009, the first cases of the H1N1 swine flu in the United States occur in 2 people in California.
That's crazy. Hey, this day in 1979, 3 Mile Island happened.
The what?
3 Mile Island. Nuclear meltdown.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, that old chestnut.
There's another one in here that I'm going to have for you by the end of this segment, but I don't have it right now.
I'm sure it'll be right in the middle of something I'm saying.
Probably.
Let's get to the birthdays. I got 3 to talk about. First up, we have Lady Gaga turns 36.
Yep.
Vince Vaughn turns 52.
I didn't have Vince Vaughn.
Shout out to Vince Vaughn.
You like Vince Vaughn?
I do like
I
Vince
do like
Vaughn.
the Vince Vaughn.
I saw him at the, what was it, the
Oh.
SEC championship game. He was on the field when I was about to take the field for our performance. He was on the field. He was a very nice guy.
Okay, cool.
And finally, Derek Carr turns 31.
There's a lot more than that.
Oh, there is.
Oh, yeah. Reba McEntire, 67.
Technical difficulties. And stuff.
Oh, yeah. We have been having some interwebs trouble. Byron Scott, born on this day in 1961.
Scotty.
Yep. Luke Walton, born on this day in 1980.
There you go.
Somebody had posted one up about I want to say it was a former Chicago Bear, and now I'm not seeing it anymore.
Come on now.
I know it happens.
All right, well then, Desta, we got to talk about Dwight D. Eisenhower, passed on this day in 1969. And finally, Jim Thorpe, passed on this day in 1953. You got that event for me yet? Or do you want me to
Not
get to the
yet.
holidays?
Darn it. Keep going.
All right, well, finally, the holidays. I got 2 to talk about. It is Respect Your Cat Day, as if, every day prior to that or after that, you just absolutely did not respect your cat. Today is the day, people, to change your ways. Respect your cat. And finally, apparently, it's National Weed Appreciation Day.
Weed is in like lawn weeds or like weed
No,
is in
like,
smoking weed?
Yeah, smoking.
This day in 1982.
What happened?
La Tech, the Lady Texters, took home their national title.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Lady Texters were favorites to repeat. Oh, I'm sorry, they took up their second national title. They were favorites to repeat. That was a Kim Mulkey team.
Very
and
nice.
that is why I bring it up.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That is this day in history.
All right, quick break. When we come back, let's get the latest on the legislative session. Speaker Clay Shexnayder joins us next. I couldn't find a box score to see what Mulkey scored that night. Yeah. Is ETEL getting out or branching out beyond Ascension Parish? Morning, Michelle. Here, can you call Clay? (8:17) Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So, time for us to check in on the legislative session. That it looks like it's about to hit pause. Joining us now to speak about the entire thing is Speaker Clay Shexnayder. Clay, good morning. How are you, man?
Good morning, Brian. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. So, you continue to break ground as the speaker. Never saw a veto override session until last year, and now we're seeing one in the middle of a regular session. How is this expected? Let's talk about from a logistics standpoint before we ask you to crystal ball things, which I know is impossible. From a logistics standpoint, what are we looking at this week?
Well, you know, when I get to the Capitol this week, I'm a get with the clerk's office, get with Senator Paige Cortez, and we'll kind of lay down the groundwork on how we want to move and what we're going to do. So, the rough scenario right now, I would say, would be that we would, go in on Wednesday, vote on bills, possibly be done by Thursday, and be back in the regular session.
Be done by Thursday, so that would put us back on track for the regular session by Friday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how many bills would there be to vote on within the veto override session? Because only one map was vetoed.
The two congressional maps were vetoed.
Okay. So was it Senator Hewitt had one as well?
Senator Hewitt and mine. Yes.
Okay. Well, within those, one has to be settled on. So do we get that far to get down to one, or do you just override both vetoes?
Well, we'll see what happens on one. I mean, we won't necessarily take two votes unless we have to, but we'll vote on one, and then if we get the votes on that one, then we won't have to do the other. So we'll just do one. We'll probably end up starting in the House on the vote, and then just move from there.
And you'll have up to 5 days to get this done, but this sounds like it should be pretty quick work.
I would think so. I mean, there's not much debate that needs to happen. We did all of the debating during the session and went through it all. And I mean, I'm sure we'll have some conversation, but we should be able to wrap it up in 1 to 2 days, I would think.
How, as the speaker, from a leadership position, how do you keep things on track and not get people to degenerate back to their original takes? Namely, we've gotten this far. Let's just decide whether or not we're going to override what the governor vetoed versus going all the way back to square one with all the maps.
Well, I think, the big thing is most of the legislators out there have to, and I say this all the time, they have to represent their district and what their district wants. Whether it's a super conservative district, whether it's a moderate district, whether it's a Democrat district, they've done their homework. They've listened to their constituents, and they know the vote that they have to make. So usually, I'll sit down with legislators and I'll tell them, guys, this is a vote not for you. This is a vote for the state, and this is a vote for your district back home. You are sent here to represent those people, and usually that's all the talking that we have to do most of the time. I mean, people are sent there, and our legislators understand that more than anybody, that they represent their people back home, and that's the votes that they make.
Is there any way to get a pulse of how it's going to play out?
Well, not until later today. When we get there later today, I think we'll have a few meetings. The Senate president and I will sit down, and then we'll meet with our chambers, and then probably go from there. Either today or tomorrow, we'll have a more clear path on where we want to be.
Is your mind made up, or are there some stakeholders you still have to hear from before knowing where your vote's going to head?
No, I'm going to vote my district, and I'm going to vote to override the veto. My district is in favor of the maps, and that's the way my vote goes.
House Speaker Clay Shexnayder is our guest, talking about the upcoming potential veto override session. Speaker Shexnayder, I might be oversimplifying things, so I encourage you to correct me if I'm wrong here. But my take on this has been, from a matter of expedience, no matter how things play out with what y'all do this week, it's going to end up in the hands of the courts. So from a matter of expedience, doesn't it just make sense to override this and push it to where it needs to be? Because if you don't override this, you're back to square one.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct on that. And I think most members understand that. Most members out there that I've had conversation with feel exactly the same way. So as far as us doing the veto override, it means a lot to not only us, but for the process and for what happens after this. If we go to court and we're able to override this veto, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. There are times where you have to forget about what your particular stance is and just look at the overall chessboard and realize that no matter how you end up dying on this hill, you're going to die on this hill. It's just live to fight another day.
That's right.
Meanwhile, there is a regular legislative session to go, which was moving along at a pretty decent clip, if I do say so. How do you push pause on this and then pick up on the back end without having to go back to the first day of school?
Well, I can tell you, and Brian, I think me and you have stayed in touch enough for you to understand that this legislative body, we've dealt with more issues and more things than probably any other legislative body has ever dealt with. And I can tell you that the legislators in the House, all of them, all 105, are ready, willing to work and do whatever it takes to keep things moving at the right pace. So I don't have any concern about us being able to pick up the pace and the workload that we have. These guys and gals have done an excellent job at making sure that we accomplish our goals, make sure that we show up to take care of the people's work. And I think you've seen that over the past legislative sessions where, we come in and we do the right thing for our constituents and just making Louisiana better. And then looking at the legislation and the budgets that we passed in the last 2 years, I think you see that work as a result of legislators stepping up and doing what they need to do.
House Speaker Clay Shexnayder is our guest. We're talking about the ongoing legislative session, which will be interrupted shortly. Speaker Shexnayder, there's going to be a lot of one-time dollars in this budget now that we're a couple weeks into the session. Are we getting a better idea of what's going to be popular, the popular opinions as to where those one-time dollars should head?
Well, I know Appropriations is meeting today to finish up a few things. Once we get that done, then we'll have a clearer path. But yeah, the big piece is making sure that we spend one-time dollars on one-time projects. We don't want to get into the situation that previous legislators had where we spent one-time money on reoccurring expenses and then create a big old hole for ourselves later down the line. So I think you're going to start to see, as we wound up Appropriations Committee, I think you're going to start to see a clear path forward. We do have an opportunity to make some huge gains in projects that are shovel-ready. And that's the big thing, is making sure that we put those dollars on projects that are shovel ready and we can see instant results once these dollars are there.
I'm a little bit hesitant as to where that answer went because my next question is about the $500 million the governor wants to set aside. That is not a shovel ready project as of now. It sounds like you might be leaning a bit away from that one.
Well, Brian, and I've said this before, I'm 100% in support of the bridge in Baton Rouge, but I'm not 100% in parking that $500 million there and ending up, and you know this as well as anybody, ending up the way we did years ago with the Comey Diversion Project, where we kept putting dollars towards that project, and then legislators behind us and people behind us come and sweep those dollars to do other things. I'm not in favor of putting money there just to say, hey, well, we put it here. Those dollars that we have right now, I am looking for a clearer path. I've been here since 2012, and they've been discussing this project since then, and we still haven't come up with a site to even put it. Mm-hmm. So, if they can narrow it down, and I think there's some meetings going on this week, if they can narrow it down to one project, I'm all well and good to say, hey guys, we can put these dollars there and we can utilize them to move this project forward. But if I'm looking at 6 different projects and we haven't even narrowed it down to where the bridge is going to go yet, then that's my reservation on it.
Couple of more minutes left with House Speaker Clay Shexnayder. Clay, is there a way to build those contingencies into it? Because I knew this was going to come up, and every time I get excited about the possibility of a new bridge, something gets in the way and it gets derailed. Is there a way to put hard deadlines on the committee, that's the site selection committee, to say you have to get down to one site, you have to get down to one site by this date, you have to get your environmentals done by this date, or else the money goes back in to the general fund?
There is absolutely ways to do that. The problem with some of those dates is, we could put that in there, and that was done even during the Comey Diversion days. They did those things, but what happens is you end up having a legislature that comes in and it changes direction. It changes the legislation on it, and then it can move those dollars anywhere they want. So that's my only reserve, Brian. Look, I want a bridge there as much as anybody, and I want us to be successful. But I want to make sure that we have a project that is ready to go, that we have a site that is ready to go to make it better for the people of Louisiana. We've done this over and over and over again, and maybe it's just me on rocking the ship, but I think people in Louisiana, and especially in my district who travel these roads just like you do, they want to see something done. And in order for us to see something done, we have to have a model, a project that is ready to go. And right now, we just don't have that.
How can you hold their feet to the fire to make sure we have a project that's ready to go? What leverage do you have?
Well, right now is doing what we're doing. And I think you've seen them speed up since I've made the statement, and other legislators have made the statement that, you need to have a one single project, a one single location for those dollars to be there. Setting those dollars there doesn't improve the project any more or less. It just says we are committed to doing it. And look, I am committed more than anybody to do it. But we have to have a site location. We have to have a plan in place to be able to put those dollars there to be successful for the people of Louisiana.
It absolutely has to happen. I've been encouraging every legislator to fight tooth and nail, to claw, to scratch, to gouge eyes, do whatever it takes, because as we sit here, we just find another reason not to get it done. Oh, before I get you out of here, and I greatly appreciate your time this morning, centralizing sales tax collection. This passed last time around, then fell short at the polls. Where are we at this time around?
I feel really good with it again this year. I can tell you that we saw where we fell short last time. I know the legislature is on board to help get this done again, and I think you see a huge push towards that to get it done this go round. And we're gonna make it happen this time, Brian. That's something that can make Louisiana more competitive when it comes to bringing manufacturing and things like that in and creating new jobs. We definitely need this.
No, absolutely. And the fact that it got done on a legislative level last year means we got one step closer, and then fighting the fiefdoms on the fiefdom level is going to be that much harder come election time. He is House Speaker Clay Shexnayder. I always appreciate the time and the availability, sir. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Brian. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. You too, and we'll talk to you soon. We got a break for news in just a minute. Enough time for me to ask you, have you downloaded the Matherns app yet? If you live near the former Winn-Dixie at the corner of Burbank and Lee, you're probably looking for a new home for grocery shopping. Maybe swing back towards campus. Maybe swing back by Matherns. They're on Nicholson Drive, right across from Tiger Stadium. I mean, right across from Tiger Stadium. I would say they're in the shadows of Tiger Stadium, but when you look at it from an east-west standpoint, it wouldn't line up. But if you're on Nicholson and you look at Tiger Stadium, literally turn around and you'll see it. They've got the Matherns app. Get your grocery shopping done before you leave work. If you work downtown and you live in Riverbend, if you work downtown and you have to drive up Nicholson as part of your commute, I can save you time every week with your groceries. Get your grocery shopping done before you leave work. You pull in the parking lot, they bring it out to you, boom, you're done. Oh, by the way, both Nicholson Drive and the downtown location, fantastic. And I mean, super underrated lunch counter there. The deli at both is fantastic. Getting your seafood on Fridays, whether it be fried catfish or boiled shrimp. They've got you covered at both locations of Matherns. Here's CBS. Hello! Come on over.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Okay. I'm okay.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for coming down this morning. I appreciate it.
Me up and moving. And,
I'm glad to hear it.
You know, rather than relaxing in my bed.
Yes. Production room.
Oh, Lord. What is this one?
From The Advocate.
Oh, terrible write-up. You look great.
Thank you very much.
You've lost some weight.
60 pounds last year.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
Go Slim Nutrition.
Excellent. Good. I mean, after 2 years, and especially 2 years ago, sitting around and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Which was
Well, he's not going to be back. We've been having internet problems.
Okay.
Oddly enough, for me, it wasn't COVID. So in 2011, when we first launched Talk 107.3, they were called MetaFast at the time. They picked me. I weighed 280 pounds.
Okay.
I got all the way down to 193.
Okay.
Kept the weight off from 2020. I got it. With you'll run news after the track. So. Oh, you got it. Yeah. There was no way you were going to make that in time. Yeah. I got you. And so I lost all that weight and kept it off until the flood. When we flooded.
Really?
Yeah.
In 16?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and I started. Oh yeah, we flood. Hey, an inch and a half of water was all we got. But you had to rip out all the floors, rip out 4 feet of sheetrock. Fortunately for us, old school house, built in '64 in Sherwood, right?
Okay.
It didn't penetrate the cabinets.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
we
when
got
they
it.
made good cabinets.
Yeah.
They weren't made out of pressboard.
Exactly. We got back in behind the cabinets. It's like, no, don't rip this out.
Wonderful.
Oh, I know. It was really one of the saving graces.
Time,
So,
money, lots of things.
yeah, where we are, I mean, barely took water.
Okay.
But I lived on my daughter's floor for 6-7 months. We didn't have a kitchen because you pull out the floors and the sheetrock, you got to pull out the oven and all that other good stuff. And the like the oven, the dishwasher, they were all gone.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, we're always on YouTube. So that camera right over there. So yeah, we are. Whoop. So I always like to give people a heads up so there's no hot mic incidents.
I never dreamed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of misunderstanding.
Is it a misunderstanding or an unwillingness to understand?
That's, I've said both.
Okay. We'll talk about that. But yeah, couldn't find a contractor because we had such a small job. People that lost their whole homes. If you're a contractor, you got $80,000 worth of work here or $6,000 worth of work here. Which one are you choosing? Right? So we kind of had to wait our turn. I mean, my productivity at work fell off. I wasn't here at the time. I was over at a different media company at the time. Yeah, just eating Little Caesars 4 days a week, McDonald's the other 3. Like it just.
Oh, that'll do it, won't it?
Yeah. My gym shut down because they flooded out and lost all their membership. So yeah, I had bad diet, no outlet to work out, and sleeping on a floor upstairs. Thank God we were upstairs. You had a.
I mean, there's a depression that sits in. You know, looking at all that you're.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of boredom eating, a lot of comfort eating.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then COVID with the booze stepped up during COVID a lot. Not gonna play. But it slowly crept back on after 2016, where I stopped with, I went weight loss and then maintenance, and then it was a slow tick back upwards, and I put 60 pounds back on.
Well, that's not.
No, I've knocked it back off again.
It's
so.
not the whole entire.
Right. So, but yeah, it worked very well the first time around. It's working very well this time around. Yeah, I do.
Blood pressure's going down and all.
I have not checked my blood pressure.
Okay.
I probably should.
Okay. So no doubt that it's perfectly fine. Yeah, got to get back on mine as well. So been working on it. I have psoriatic arthritis, so any extra weight on my joints is really hard on me.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, so it's like, and I do the keto thing, not the hard keto, but just anything that causes inflammation, sugars, carbohydrates,
right?
Any of those things,
right?
And so.
Well, yeah, this is for me. It's a protein-based diet, a lot like Ideal Protein, but with local coaching, and that's what makes all the difference to me.
You gotta have some kind
it's
of
accountability. Yeah, it's all about accountability. So I'm Catholic. I call it food confession. I go over there every Friday and I weigh in, and I mean you weigh in every Friday and you compare it to last Friday, and it's like last week I was down 1 pound. The week before that I was up a pound, and it was due directly to St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you had a lot of beer over the week. Yes, I did. It's okay. What are you doing this week? How do you right the ship?
You got to start over.
Yep.
You've always got to start over, and that's what a lot of people do. They splurge one day and they think, oh well, I'm done, and then they, so.
Hitting reset and pushing this
water. I know.
A lot.
I need to drink
which
more
for
water.
arthritis as well.
Oh yeah.
Super important.
Oh yeah.
837 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. We are looking at a high of 83 today. Oh, yeah. Getting warmer because we got a high of 86 tomorrow. Overnight low tonight only gets down to 60. Tomorrow night, overnight low only gets down to 69. We are looking at a 100% chance of rain on Wednesday, which is going to kind of reset it a little bit for the cooler air. Overnight low on Wednesday night, 53. We're going to top out at 74 on Thursday. So after a nasty Wednesday, should clear up a good bit for Thursday. Right now, we are at 64 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. So I stumbled across this article on, I believe it was Friday. The headline reads, "Who should police noise from Baton Rouge bars and restaurants? Metro Council is split." Reading from the article by Paul Kobler with The Advocate, Metro Council is divided over legislation that would transfer enforcement of Baton Rouge's noise ordinance from the police department to the city's alcohol regulatory board amid a council member's ongoing feud with a raucous bar and restaurant that specializes in Southern comfort food. Long and the short of this is Denise Amoroso would like to take this off of the police's plate and put it on in the hands of the alcohol regulatory board. Denise joins us now. Councilwoman, how are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very, very well. Let's get you right up on it a little
right.
bit. So, what brought this to the council's table?
Well, we've been looking for ways to regulate noise. I've had issues in my district with certain bars and restaurants causing too much noise for the neighbors. There are other council people that have had the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone many routes about how to regulate this. I've talked to the parish attorney, many conversations with the parish attorney's office. I've talked to the mayor's office, talked to ABC board, had conversations with the police. And after a couple of years that we've been working on this, this is what the parish attorney came up with.
Okay, so this isn't necessarily your idea.
Right.
You're bringing the proposal, but this dates
Right.
back to the parish attorney.
Right.
What did the chief say?
The chief, I have not talked to the chief about this, but in the past years when we have had to call the police out, there's been some misunderstanding with the police department and how to enforce this. They have said in the past, well, we have to have a decibel reader, where that's not true. I believe it was in 2019 we passed a decibel reader for cars only.
Okay.
So decibel reader does not work here. Also, there was a situation that came up a couple of weeks ago. The police came out and they said, well, the amplifiers are not outside, they're inside. Well, that doesn't matter either.
No.
So there is a noise ordinance already on the books. We just have to see that it gets enforced.
Right.
Plus, Brian, with all the crime that we've got going on in Baton Rouge right now, the question is, do we really want to pull our police from those duties to stop noise?
So that's why I asked what the chief had to say, because he's been dealing with a huge homicide rate. It's
has.
better this year than it was last year, to be sure.
He has,
But
yes.
he's got a lot on his plate. And actually, the more I think about it, most of your district would fall under the sheriff's office, not the chief.
Some of it.
Some
it's
of it.
about half and half.
Okay. But nonetheless, do you really want police responding to noise calls when it could be handled by somebody else?
We don't want them to have to do that.
Right.
And I have even talked to the police and certain officers, and they've said, we really don't want to have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We've got other things on our plate that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
So if I were to have a conversation with the police department, I don't think they'd have a problem with it.
So the law is already in effect. This is a matter of just simple enforcement.
Exactly.
Where's the disconnect coming with the council or with other council members?
Well, I mean, we had one council member questioning, what is noise? What is noise? Well, it's written right. It's written right here in the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Noise is any loud and ruckus noise in the parish which is offensive to person of ordinary sensibilities and which renders the enjoyment of life or property uncomfortable or interferes with public peace and comfort. So I tried to point that out at the meeting. Also, you kind of get the feeling that there's two sets of laws for two sets of people, right?
How so?
One of our council people said, well, in our culture, we do certain things in our culture. We have loud parties and we have those things. So, Brian, I'm not trying to take away from celebrations, parties, and those kinds of things. We just need to make sure that our bars and our restaurants are conscious of the neighbors behind them, be respectful for the neighbors behind them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the parish attorneys, in fact, the ABC board parish attorney, said, a bar and a restaurant, to have a liquor license, it's not a right, it's a privilege.
Sure, yeah.
And with those privileges come great responsibility.
So I apologize for laughing when you say what is noise, but it sounds like an obvious question, like an obvious answer. Like, can we not start the conversation beyond that?
Well, and other things came up in the meeting. Well, what about the football games? Too much noise. What about Live After 5 downtown? What about Government Street? What about, there's certain areas that lend itself to loud noises, music, those kinds of things. But when you are behind a neighborhood,
right,
it's a totally different
Well,
situation.
and Government Street might be the only exception to that rule. And I don't know of a football game that lasts until 2 a.m. And if it is, I want to be there.
Right.
Right. But, I'm hard-pressed to have sympathy for somebody who moves in next to the airport and complains about the noise.
Right.
It just, there are certain places that are going to have noise, and that's the reason we zone things out the way we do.
And you understand that. And I made that point as well, that if you move downtown, you want to be part of that culture. You want to be part of the Live After 5. You want to be part of all those things. If you move down next to Tiger Stadium, you understand that this is what's going to happen during the fall on a Saturday night.
Right.
All the time.
Right. But that being said, nobody lives next to Tiger Stadium.
No, but
nobody
they live pretty
lives
close to Tiger Stadium.
And Live After 5 is over at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
After that, you are downtown. And once again, if you're downtown, you've made the choice to live downtown.
Right.
This would be completely different.
Right.
So you were kind of skirting around it and trying to be very diplomatic, but we're talking about Shauna Banks as well, playing the race card. That's the cut and dry of what went on there.
Yeah.
Skipping past the question of how exhausting is that to have that be the answer to every single thing that comes up in front of the Metro Council, how do you address it diplomatically?
I know that it's not.
Do what?
I know that it's not.
Well, it's not. It's what is noise? If you're answering the question, what is noise? Noise doesn't involve race.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. The particular restaurant that I'm talking about is owned by an African American gentleman.
Okay.
Okay. So they are going to take that and say, well, we want him out of the neighborhood. And, Brian, that's simply not true.
Right.
I don't care who is in that restaurant. As long as, and I've made this point several times, as long as you're a good neighbor, we're good to go.
Right.
The neighbors, these neighbors have lived in this neighborhood, some of them 30, 40 years.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're disrupted most Sunday nights. It's always on a Sunday night.
Wow, okay.
But of course, other times when you have Cinco de Mayo, you have all these other things going on, which if you have huge crowds, you usually have to have an event permit in order to be able to do those things. So it's not about race. In fact, one of the gentlemen that lives in that neighborhood who is working with me is an African American gentleman.
Right.
So we know that that's not what it's about. It's about disturbing the peace and people's peaceful lives is what it is.
Even with an event permit, I think most of the neighborhood would understand that event is a one-off.
Absolutely.
It's not an every week occurrence.
Absolutely.
This goes beyond that.
Absolutely.
So who has heard the message and is in agreement?
Several of the other council people, which we're totally all not on board. We're going to be working, as you know, that it's been deferred for 60 days.
Right.
So I met with ABC Board the other night. They have a group of gentlemen and that I'm going to be working with to make sure that it is understood how this is going to be enforced. All we want to do, the thing is too, Brian, what I really like about this, not only does it take it off of the table of the police department, which the police department is still going to enforce noise.
Right.
I mean, we're not totally taking it away from the police. We are allowing the ABC Board in order to be able to enforce it. They regulate, they regulate bars and restaurants anyway.
Right.
And all those kinds of things. So not only that, we're also taking it from criminal court to civilian, which they will, if anyone violates and have been cited by the ABC Board, the individual will go before the ABC Board instead.
Okay.
Which will take it out of our court system, which we've got enough going on.
Way
in our
overloaded
court
as well,
system,
yes.
Especially since they closed down the courts for several months, would not, do trials or anything. So it's going to take it out of the court system. Plus, it'll streamline it because, if you have a court date, it could be months out.
Sure.
Where you will go right before ABC board within 2 to 4 weeks and have it. Now, does it mean that you're automatically going to get your liquor license taken away from you? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. What it's going to say is, hey, we're serious about this, and if this is a continual thing, you're going to get your license taken away from you. I don't want anybody's license taken away.
No, that means a lack of business.
But, absolutely. And, South Baton Rouge during Lent, and you're serving crawfish, you want to be able to serve that beer.
Oh, no, absolutely. But we're all trying to be reasonable about time frame as well. Right. I don't think anybody's complaining about anything that happens before 10 p.m.
No.
If this drags...
Well, actually, the noise ordinance is 7 to sundown.
Okay.
So anything past sundown, then we're having to,
What are the time? Do we know the time frames of when these reports are coming in?
As far as what?
As far as when the complaints about the noise are coming in.
Yeah. You mean the ones that I'm getting?
Yeah.
From my neighbors?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. 10, 11, 12 midnight.
That's where I'm going with this. And that's kind of the sticking point.
Right.
This feels like and we got less than a minute to go. Okay. This feels from an outsider's perspective like it's an either or. How do you find the middle ground?
I think, again, helping people to understand this is not a new ordinance. It is allowing the ABC board to be able to enforce it.
Gotcha.
Is all that it is.
And and therein lies the rub, is you're not really trying to change the law.
No.
Just the enforcement of the law. She is Metro Councilwoman Denise Amoroso. We greatly appreciate the time. Thank you for coming down this morning. Thank you. We have got Your Money Now coming your way in just a second. Then we're going to close things out on the back end. Hey, don't forget, Michelangelo's going on at the River Center right now. Want to see the Sistine Chapel laid out like you've never seen it before? Unless you've actually been to the Sistine Chapel. Yeah, you can win tickets on talk1073.com right now. Michelangelo in town. Oh, it's a special event going on. Let's check Your Money Now. We'll close it out next on Talk 1073. Yes. All right. So, yeah, anybody who thinks Denise Amoroso wants to lessen her tax base by closing businesses is just foolish. Nori says, back when I worked with the state ATC, we used to investigate noise complaints. It's not a change to the law. If you were breaking the law on Monday, you're breaking the law on Tuesday. That's all there is to that. .856 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. One segment to go before we get out of here on Mornings with Brian Haldane. Thank you for everybody who stopped by the show today. I mean, wow. Denise Amoroso was just in our last segment. If you missed it, it's going to be available on demand at talk1073.com. What a fascinating conversation about something as simple as a noise ordinance. She's not looking to change the law. She's looking into changing up who is going to enforce said law. And yet, the quote from Councilwoman Shauna Banks, they might not like a certain type of music. Nothing in the ordinance declares what type of music, like rap or honky tonk, and they can use this tool to close them down. There's nothing in the ordinance that determines whether or not you could be at a certain decibel level for death metal or a certain decibel level for hip hop or old school R&B. I mean, except for Frankie Beverly and Maze. If you're cranking Frankie Beverly and Maze, you get a pass. Everything else is out. Sorry. It's just such a stupid take. And I didn't mean to laugh when she said it's about what is noise. What is noise? And remember, okay, I'm dating myself here. Let's go back to the 90s. It depends on what the meaning of the word is. Remember that, Hot Jim? Remember that, Chestnut? Anyway, we'll continue to follow that one. My appreciation to Clay Shexnayder for hopping on board. Fantastic segment from the House Speaker. Talk about how it's going to go down over the course of this week. As the morning has worn on, we're seeing more and more, I don't want to say dissension, but more and more different takes on congressional districts. It's sounding like, okay, first of all, Clay Higgins does not like Clay Shexnayder's map. I don't care. You don't get to vote on this, Clay. If you want to vote on the district maps, run for a state seat, not a congressional seat. They get to decide, and the governor signs off on where your district lies. And if you're Congressman Johnson or Congressman Scalise or Congressman Graves or Congressman Carter or Congresswoman Letlow, same story. That's how this works. Also, Stephen Wagerspack, great segment with him. We had Medical Monday talking about developmental care. And, of course, Ryan J., film critic, talking about Will Smith and the Oscars last night. We tried to talk about the Oscars, but what it all boiled down to was going back to our 6 o'clock hour and our Moral Dilemma Monday segment, which go back and watch on YouTube because that's where the comments are at. Apparently, I'm in the wrong here. Apparently, my take is the unpopular take. You make fun of a health condition of my wife on a worldwide stage, there will be consequences. Will Smith's heart, I'll die on this hill. Will Smith's heart was in the right place. I don't know if he had to hit him. I don't know if you expected that reaction, but you had to expect a reaction. It's not her body of work that was being made fun of. Anyway, we got to get out of here. Fox News Rundown's next. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, YouTube, I got to get upstairs. Thank you all so much for playing along today. Great responses on Moral Dilemma Monday. I'm going to try to make that a more regular segment. Might not be every week, but most weeks. We'll see you tomorrow.